Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the EA Sports F1 Creator Series, brought to you and powered by EA Sports F1 and, of course, IMB Raceware 2. My name is George Morgan. Welcome back to the show as we now look ahead to yet further races here in Season 9 of the Creator Series. Tonight we go down under, and I don't mean down here, I mean over to Australia. It's going to be stellar. We've got a huge championship fight. Tiermet Marduk leads the way in the standings so far. 20 points separate he and Alex Gillen, but Gillen's not here tonight. Joining me is the one and only Tom Knight. TK, it's great to have you back, sir.
Oh, it feels fantastic to be back. You have those moments. It's an elongated time away, but it feels just about right to be back in this commentary box, especially alongside yourself.
Oh, TK, melt my heart, sir. Melt my heart. Yeah, incredible. Tonight, obviously, we're witnessing yet another gargantuan visit to the Australian circuit. We've been here before, TK, a track that has offered, so many fireworks in the past. And the one thing that does stick out is, of course, the GB68 collision with Benjamin Daly heading through the middle sector in that fast left and right. It got very, very tight between them on the outset of Lakeside Drive. Again, we could see something similar tonight. Of course, we'll talk about the wild card as well in just a little moment. But, when we think of Australia, and we've seen a lot of it already in the real-life context of Formula One, things are very fast and at the same time can be futile.
Absolutely right. It's one of those circuits that promotes fast racing. Every single twist and turn is only a little dab on the throttle for the majority of the circuit. Get the car turned in and basically full throttle to the next corner as well. And obviously, that instant that you referred to, it's something that happens quite often in those sort of circuits. It's a high speed, collisions happen, but they're so much more dramatised because of the speeds that we're running with.
Yeah, I tell you what, no, just want to talk about reuniting as well. Spoke about you reuniting with us as well, TK. Once again, reunited with me in the commentary box. This is bigger than the Beatles because we're bringing in Clipbook Carl back to the show. Welcome, Clipbook Carl. Carl Paranik, everybody. Carl, we are back down under Australia, and I'm sure you're going to be busy tonight, sir.
Oh, yes. It's great to be back in Clipbook Corner. Great to be alongside both of you as well. For an Australian Grand Prix, Tiermet Marduk has a good chance to send Aussie spirits soaring before the actual real-life F1 race. At least that's the game plan. Plenty of hungry championship challengers behind. But best believe, here in Clipbook Corner, I will try and apex every single piece of the action possible.
And do you know what, Carl? I believe you, sir. I believe you. I can't wait. It's going to be stellar. Let's talk about the championship, TK. Obviously, we've muttered around Tiermet Marduk being at the top of the tree. Obviously, Alex Gillen being where he is. Of course, Formula Karim snapping at the heels as well, has been stellar all season long. 139 points to his name. McLaren have a fairly decent record here in the Creator Series as well. If you look back, one of only, I think, two teams that have actually won the championship twice. And the only difference is obviously Aston Martin won theirs back-to-back. But with Formula Karim, you've got someone who's fully capable. Meraki coming into this as well, stealing results late in the day. We saw it back at Miami. It tends to be a typical trait of his, really. And GB68, I get the sense of some improvements. Arguably his best season to date, given the fact that for the first time, he's had multiple wins in a season.
I think absolutely right. GB is one of those drivers at the moment, seems to be coming into his element, especially at the later half of the game. He's really kind of coming into his own podiums and the couple of wins that he's had over the last kind of few weeks in the few races. Meraki, interestingly enough, as you said, one of those drivers who will fight until that checkered flag flies. And more importantly, if you look back to Australia last time out, that's exactly what happened. That collision.
Precisely.
And he came through to win that race.
Yeah, like we said, he did exactly the same at Miami as well this season, so we could yet see lightning strike twice. You'd be hoping, though, it's a little bit more comfortable this time, I'd imagine. Let's take a look at the team standings. Mercedes in control on 204 points. Of course, Tiermet Marduk representing that team. He's got a very capable teammate as of lately. I want to talk about Adam Sanderson as well, Tom. I've noticed a real change in spirit, I think, in Adam Sanderson. Someone you associate generally being at the back, which is horrible to say when you consider that he is the Devin Butler on the F1 game, but has since risen to the occasion here in the EA Sports F1 Creator Series. And it just feels like ever since Miami, he's turned a corner. It just seems like he's getting better and better.
Yeah, he keeps turning corners. Every single twist and turn that appears in front of him, I think he's finding the pace, he's finding what works well for him, and that's the important factor, I think. When it comes to situations like this, you've got to find what works for you. And himself and Ben are looking like an unstoppable lineup at the moment if they can get their characteristics worked out.
Yeah, they're looking unbelievable right now. Safso making his way around the circuit at this moment in time, albeit invalidating on his outlap. But nonetheless, that's not an issue at this point. Obviously, it will become an issue should he do it on the fast run. Aviators and all, PS1 Hagrid has returned, and he's got aviators too. Great to see it. Let's see if he can Expelliarmus a lap out in our next run. 16 minutes or so to go in the session. Not forgetting as well, we have intermediate pole, which is something that will conclude come the end of the 12th minute, or 12 minutes to go. So we will bring you, who will obtain that as we make our way through the session. But Safso, of course, remember, Season 1 champion, the OG champion here in the EA Sports F1 Creator Series, was a winner here back in Season 1 as well, after taking pole, one of the very few to go. In fact, the only driver to go from lights to flag in front here at Australia so far in a season, and that's the sort of confidence he will need to compete at the very top. As you can see, many drivers occupying those intermediate tyres here, so looking to scrap for those added points that can really change the face of your championship.
Absolutely right. He's a fantastic driver on his day. I thought we'd seen snippets of classic Safso back in a couple of races ago. It wasn't, unfortunately, to be on that occasion, but I think he's still got it. That fire still burns inside Safso, and the minute he manages to put another log on it, he's going to be firing on all cylinders. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see Daddy Hagrid, aka Classic Safso, back on our screens.
Yeah, no, I would not be surprised either. We've got GB68 who we're currently riding on board with as well. He's purple in the middle sector as of now, 17.9. He registered a 27.5 in the first. He hasn't got purple in that first sector because Fabio has taken that. Infratic, who is currently sat P20 on our screens as we now watch GB make his way up towards the line. Let's see where he goes. Obviously, I'd imagine you go to the top with a 119.251. Purple in that final sector has lost his purple second sector, though, because F1 Alex has stolen that. Safso goes second fastest, just nearly 0.6 of a second behind that of the Aston Martin that currently sits on top of the tree. Here comes Formula Karim, also looking very fast as well in the first two sectors. 18.4 in sector 2, just not quite good enough for those first two sectors, but enough to steal the purple third sector. So a good showing from McLaren's own Formula Karim as he now sends it down through towards turn 3. F1 Alex now to the top as well with a 117.099, also now stealing the purple third sector. Riccio 3 also one to watch, purple in that middle sector. And we're going to see this becoming a trend, I think, Safso, but now it's now or never essentially, because we're here now with 13 minutes and 40 to go, and essentially nearly only a minute left before we bring an end to the intermediate pole lap.
Absolutely right. This is fascinating behaviour watching with Ricky here as he makes his way in towards the final corner. Of course, DRS being banned means slipstream is going to be the only crucial factor to get those quick laps in. Being held up by the Aston Martin actually through the penultimate corner, and I think that is what's cost Ricky potentially provisional pole position.
Yeah, not ideal at all. He got very much held up towards that, or coming through that final sector. And you're absolutely spot on as well, TK. We have got a wild card tonight of no DRS. So no DRS can be utilised for the race here tonight. It's going to be very spicy, that's for sure. We're riding on board with our championship leader. It's Tiamat Marduk. George Morgan's features pet, the wonder from Down Under, has taken a sweating in the Creator Series to new levels this season. That is extraordinary. I don't know where all this has come from. We've got a very butthurt Racing Shy out in this field, clearly. We're now watching Tiamat Marduk coming through the final corners. Let's see where he ends up. Green in the first two sectors. Nothing to shout and scream about so far. We're not yet seeing purple as he now climbs towards the line. It's now 5th fastest for Tiamat Marduk. Certainly not fastest of the intermediate runs. That is currently in the hands of GB68. But Scott Taylor on the soft tyres, going fastest of all. The track ever more improving. It is 117.084 for Scott Taylor. Let's see where Racing Chai goes. He's on an intermediate run, looking to sink GB for the added points. Can't do it with a 119.425. Still just under 0.2 away from GB's Aston Martin.
Yeah, fantastic run from GB and from Razin Chai as well. GB has got that Inter's pole point. Someone who's looked so quick on the Inter's pole points over this season, and of course last season as well, quite often picking up that extra point, which is a crucial help in the championship, not only for himself, but for the Aston Martin duo of him and and his teammate. Mine's completely gone there. That guy Vince, my apologies, Vince.
Poor Vince. A violation for poor that guy Vince right there. But there we have it. Yeah, incredible. I mean, for GB68, these are much needed points. Currently sat 5th in the standings. And like I said, has had a great season. His best in the Creator Series if you factor in the win all the way back in the Italian job at Monza, and then after that managing to seal the deal at the fan vote for round 5 as well. He's coming into this season with a lot of momentum, is GB68. If you're going to start bringing out the best results, now's the time, especially considering the fact that he might be in danger of missing a couple of races towards the end of a season. But still, at this point, great display from the man in the Aston Martin. He is still sat in 5th fastest and may yet come out on soft tyres and go to the top here in this short qualifying session. It's still Scott Taylor who holds all the cards, though. His teammate Lolin Ober is now making his way around the final corners. He also having a great season as well, a winner back in round 6, taking victory in that race as well at the very start of the weekend. Now goes to the top as well. It's a Haas 1 and 2 here with Lolin Ober at the top of the tree, and Scott Taylor sat in 2nd place now. Could it be the case that there's going to be a celebration in store for Amayu Komatsu?
It could be a rather, gracious goodbye to, I believe, his wheel that he's getting replaced by the time we head for our next Creator Series race. But Haas 1-2, absolutely fantastic to see. But I think we're going to throw it over potentially to Clipboard Corner. Carl, what have you got for us?
Well, it's quite an interesting one, actually, as they all try to sort themselves out for the intermediate pole. Here from Adam Sanderson's perspective, making his way through the final sector in close quarters with the Williams of Ricky up ahead. But then there's a bit of a palaver that happens towards the final apex. There's a Red Bull and that guy Vince lone in the pit lane. Grid Jokes has a spin, and as a result, well, Adam Sanderson's preparation for his intermediates lap perhaps not going the way it would have wanted to.
That is a disastrous visit there, Carl. Obviously, unfortunate there for Adam Sanderson, getting caught napping at that very, very integral stage. It just seemed to be a little bit of a mishmash coming through towards those final corners, but still at the very top of the tree. Whilst we did have 2 Hasses at the top, it's just Lolin Ober on his own now. Zasso, Season 1 champion, back again at a track where he secured pole position in Season 1, and looking venomous again. PS1 Hagrid is not going down without a fight. We've got Scott Taylor in 3rd as well. He's on an outlap. We're riding on board with GB68. As I said, twice a race winner so far this season, looking for more and could yet grab something a little extra. Remember, he had a collision here with Tiamat Marder, current championship leader, at this very portion of circuit, but this time, no hoodoos, no ghosts in the machine. He is flying here in these final stages on this flying run. 8 minutes and 40 to go, and he's purple in the first 2 sectors, a 26.6 in Sector 1. Sector 2 offers a 17.4. A big 3rd sector could yet broach the tide in his favour. It's certainly a little grimace here from GB as he now makes his way towards the line. Goes fastest, a 1:16.243. Very nice lap, TK, just over 4.5 tenths faster.
Yeah, great lap for GB, albeit I think by his facial expressions he would have been hoping for more, as I just catch a glimpse of that inevitable Williams driving backwards around this circuit. But it was really fascinating, and this is one thing I was going to try and break down potentially in our gap between the qualifying and the race. GB and his steering in that final couple of corners, he's so incremental with it. Just carefully stepping the car, seeing when he's going to let the car go, when those wheels start to slide, and then immediately just dropping it back and waiting and trying again. And it's fascinating to see how he's pushing that car to its limits.
It absolutely is. Meraki also out on track as well. He's gone purple in the first sector with a 26.488 personal best as well. He's yet to set a lap, that's why. 17.6 in that middle sector. Let's see if he can get up close and personal to GB. He can do more than that. Go faster than GB with a 1:16.189. A magnificent showing from Season 4's champion. The champions are all coming home to roost now. Tiamat Marduk also one of those as well. A 2-time champion here in this series. Reigning champion off the back of last season, Season 8. And now in the Mercedes, looking to try and bring yet further success as he now rounds the final few corners. As I said, currently sits 20 points clear of rival Alex Gillen as he now rounds the final corner now. 26.6 in the first sector, 17.7 in Sector 2. Enough to surely bring him into the top 10, into the top 3, just behind GB as well. A 1:16.631. Still quite a lot of work to do, but he's getting closer. And just look at this from the one and only Hayden Vondergullis.
I'm sure he's done more laps in reverse in the Creator Series than he's done actually pointing forwards. He hasn't necessarily had the best completion rate. We're not quite on the levels of Mr. Dale yet, but I'm almost certain if we count them up and go through the statistics, he's done equal, if not more, laps in reverse.
Well, he's unleashing the Kraken by the looks of it. You can see that going in reverse. Certainly not in a sense of Pokemon trying to catch them all. Thankfully, he's ghosting through them right now. So, yeah, that's quite something. I mean, I'm not sure whether we can give points for a reverse lap. That's certainly not something we do here in the Creator Series. So, better luck next time, Hayden Gullis. Formula Karim in that first sector has gone purple as well. 17-7. In that middle sector, so we could yet see the McLaren return to the top as well. He's already got his teammate in the top 6. Nick flies right in amongst it with a 1:16.880. Currently sat in the pits, but he can watch now as Karim, his teammate, of course, someone who has also taken race wins this season, was a winner at Monaco and also taking the intermediate pole that same weekend as well. He could do with some big points here. Currently 15th fastest, goes second fastest. So at this moment in time, will share the front row with Meraki as he now flies through this first sector this time. Still 5 minutes and 20, plenty of time left, but now we're starting to see those big players form up at the top.
Yeah, this is where their time to really come to their own. It's 9,000ths of a second separating Meraki and Formula Karim. I say that as Lolly Nova washes both of them out of this park, Albert Park to be specific. A 1:16.145, and that's about 0.04 of a second quicker than either of those first two drivers could muster up.
Yeah, Infratic having a little moment as well, getting onto the curb and bringing out that invalidation. Unfortunately, still yet to have a race win is Infratic, as a fairly long-time servant here in the Creator Series. This will be his 93rd race here in the series. Does hold a podium, but believes that with his new wheel, he'll be able to win his first race in the Creator Series. And it is believed generally that he is Delulu. And I'm sure a lot of you will join us in agreement with that in the live chat. Just to say as well, if you are tuned in here tonight as well, here for the Creator Series, wherever you're watching across the world, we are indeed broadcasting globally here on YouTube and Twitch as well. If you are tuned in on YouTube, as we watch Hayden majestically drive backwards around Sector 1 and towards Sector 2, you can hit that like button and also leave a subscribe as well. Stay up to date. We post so many reels out there on YouTube, as well as our highlight videos, and not to mention you can catch the meme recap done by our own close friend and colleague Scotty Designs, who does a great job with those as well. If you've been tuned in on Twitch, please make sure you leave a follow and stay up to date as well with everything Creator Series. And also, why not check us out on Twitter? We are live on Twitter as well, and not forgetting TikTok, where also the reels go. Plenty to check out, folks, so make sure you indulge and get involved. Not to mention the social media networks, Instagram and Twitter at F1 Creator Series. Drop them a follow and stay up to date with your favourite creator. As we now watch and right on board with Zafso again, top 6 in the RB, 1:16.524. It's been a long time since he's tasted championship glory, but albeit he is in this fight, he's not going to set a lap this time though, coming into the pits, and will no doubt prepare for one final run. Bizarrely enough, TK, 4 cars that have yet to set laps.
4 cars that are yet to set a lap. And the more interesting thing that I wanted to point out, and I'm not sure if yourself or folks at home have noticed it, we may have had the wild card that says there's no DRS allowed. The clouds are starting to loom over this circuit. It started rather bright and sunny, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's any potential rain on the horizon.
We could yet see some. I mean, I'll be glad to report that currently showing on our radar, not that it means much, sometimes it's totally wrong. We have got no rain expected here towards the bitter end of this session, so we might be okay. But you are absolutely right, TK. It is getting slightly overcast across the Melbourne circuit as we watch that guy Vince come across the line. We do have plenty of cars that have improved on their last runs. We're still waiting though for the likes of Racing Chai to really pick things up. His last lap wasn't anything to shout and scream about, his last one being that 1:19.425. We ride on board here as we see that guy Vince in picture coming out of turn 3 through turn 4, and just dodging and weaving past the traffic that was positioned on the off-road on the right-hand side, but certainly no concern of his now as he flies through out of turn 6 and 7, around turn 8, and a venture through Lakeside Drive in Sector 2. He's going to get a nice useful tow. Now, is that his teammate by any chance? GB68 just giving him a little bit of help heading through towards the fast left and right of turns 9 and 10. It certainly looked like it, and it certainly was, flying through this portion of circuit now, and then he'll prepare for a run down through towards the final corners on this track. Turn 11 up next. A very sharp bend as well. Need to really prime your braking point, but that guy Vince having no trouble whatsoever. Let's see whether this improvement can offer plenty. He's done a 26.5 in Sector 1, 17.693 in Sector 2. Here comes that guy Vince. The question is he that guy? As he now makes his way up towards the line with 1:18 left to go. It's top 5, and Aston Martin with 2 cars up there as well. GB just in front of him, but here comes former champ Rasin Chai.
Yeah, beautiful teamwork between the Aston Martins, keeping an eye though on Razin. Final couple of corners for him to contend with. He's only managed to get a 19.4 on the board at the moment. Soft tyres will come to his aid. He'll round the final corner. Could it be provisional pole position? Yes, it is, with a 15.867. Beautiful stuff from Racing Chi.
That is absolutely brilliant from Razin Chai there. Very nearly copied what you said. We're going to the top. Razin Chai up at the very top of the order. The only driver to register a 1:15 so far in the session, and my goodness me, wasn't it a good one? All about that final purple sector with that 31.8 that he was able to register. F1 Alex also out on the lap as well, looking for big improvements. And I must say, this looks like an improvement as he makes his way up towards the line as well. Enough to break into that top 10, but only by a slither. He's got plenty of candidates further down that are looking to challenge. We got GB as well coming around the final corners. We've got 10 seconds or so left now. We're coming into stoppage time. It's all or nothing for every driver out on the grid, and GB68 is now going to look for top goal supremacy. He does! My goodness me! And that is 21 thousandths faster than Rasin Chai, who's been relegated to second place now. Here comes Fabio. He's looking to pull out a clutch lap as well. Yet to set one at all. Neither is Mike Stachio. Tiermet Marduk, the championship leader, also coming around the final corner, also looking to rise to the top late in the day. No, only enough for 4th fastest. Just in behind Lolin Ober, Formula Karim with his fellow McLaren teammate Nick Flies, both looking for a run across the line to break into the top 10, and Karim steals it right at the bitter end as well. But keenly enough, plenty of drivers to come, and here comes Meraki. He goes 5th fastest. Bizarre scenes, Karim showing his natural speed once more, TK.
Yeah, fantastic lap from himself. The toe from Nick Flies looking to prove unbalanceable amongst the rest of our field. Mike Stachio, though, still to come across the line to make it all 20 drivers setting a lap. And it's only going to be P19, but starting ahead of Hayden Gullis. At least it's not last place.
That is a stellar performance from Formula Karim. Mike Stachio, you're absolutely spot on. Managing to avoid that last place position. He will be on the back row, however, joining Hayden Gullis, who was unable to set a lap any faster than the 1:29.210 that he initially registered. Though that is the fastest reverse lap we have seen here in this session. So well done him for that. But Formula Karim is indeed the fastest driver out on track, and the Inters pole winner, GB, joins him on the front row as well. Plenty to digest, folks. We will, of course, take a look at the results before we move through to the race session. Of course, we've got Clipbook Carl waiting with anticipation, with plenty, I'm sure, to analyse for us. Formula Karim, though, is on pole ahead of the Australian Grand Prix here for tonight's Creator Series race. We've got GB joining him on the front row as well. Rasin Chai in 3rd, Lolin Ober in 4th, Meraki in 5th, Tiermet Marduk in 6th, Infratic in 7th, Ricky O3 in 8th, that guy Vince in 9th, Guatz down in 10th, Zafso in 11th place, Adam Sanderson in 12th, Scott Taylor in 13th, F1 Alex in 14th, Grid Jokes 15th, Nick Flies in 16th, Liam Hammond in 17th place, Daniel Gilligan on his return. Strange not to see him in the commentary box, to be fair. Mike Stachio down in 19th, and Hayden Gullis in 20th place will go from the back. So there we have it, folks. Those are the final results from qualifying. But before we digest it further, I think it's only right we check in with the one, the only Clipbook Carl. Carl, over to you.
Hello, folks. Clipping the apexes of these particular clips for you. First of all, we got Rasin Chai. Decent result for him in qualifying, of course, but coming up to Sector 2, he gets a follow. Fantastic. But there's more chaos brewing upfield. Infratic, Adam Sanderson and Tiermet Marduk. Rasin Chai saying, get out of the way, please. Luckily, they all do. His lap not too disrupted and taking the curbs to the absolute limit. Many of you might be wondering what on earth happened to Tiamat Marduk. Well, I can tell you what happened to Tiamat Marduk. Through the first couple of corners we go and immediately gains 1/10 of a second. All Spirit soaring, right? Well, not as simple as that. Not as clear-cut as it might seem. Through turn number 3, taking way too much curb. As you can see, taking that sausage curb on the inside, and that unsettles the car absolutely awfully, and as a result did well in the end to recover to actually a decent position. And then through that, of course, as soon as you lose momentum on one corner, it compromises your momentum. More so than that, compromises your confidence as well. Still, with that slight anchor on his back, managed to get a decent result when all was said and done.
Brilliant stuff, Carl, and you're absolutely spot on. I mean, it's all about mindset. We talk about Australia. In fact, I actually messaged or dropped a tweet to Alessandro Giusti, Formula 3 driver, who's actually making his first start this weekend at Melbourne at the Albert Park circuit. He can get over how close the barriers were, how close the walls were around this track. Of course, more familiar with the European tracks that he would have raced at in French F4 and also in the Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. One wrong slip and it can all go wrong. And we've seen that plenty of times here at this track as well, even in the Creator Series. But I mean, how about some of those laps? I mean, on any other day, TK, we'd be talking about Rasin Chai, for example, being a pole sitter. I think that speaks volumes, doesn't it, about Karim's brilliance. I think also GB as well. I mean, that's a huge qualifying session for GB as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, not only will he be P2 on the grid, he's going to have that inside line into turn number 1, which sometimes is more favourable, especially if we've got no DRS. Maybe send a cheeky move down the inside. Who knows what's going through GB's mind at the moment. But the one I kind of want to bring up here, and we saw it with GB and Vince, and obviously I'm remembering his name now, so please no hate. Just a brief slip of the mind. The teamwork that was going on this afternoon, it was fantastic to see. We saw it with the Aston Martins, and then the McLarens right at the end as well. Nick Fly is helping out, of course, Formula Karim, getting him across that line, and actually, probably that crucial 3/1000th of a second.
Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about teamwork and Aston Martin as well, essentially, do you believe that that's what's really made them teams champions over the last 2 seasons?
Oh, for sure. You've got to look at how a team bonds, how they work together. Vince and GB, they're a fantastic partnership. They know how they work. Yes, they had a lot of reserves in that opening season, but they worked well with the people that stepped in to those seats. You've got to be a friendly person. You've got to be adaptable as well. I think that's what's really paid dividends to them in the end.
Adam Sanderson as well. We've obviously been talking about his form lately. Do you think he'll be a little bit disappointed starting outside the top 10?
I think you have to be, surely. If you're outside the top 10, you're not where you want to be. You want to be at least closer to your teammate, maybe provide that support. We've seen maybe some chaos between Ben and Adam there, especially when it comes to pit stops and the double stacking chaos that happened just a few races ago. But I mean, if something happens, there's still a potential that those who can reunite on track, work together, especially with how powerful the slipstream can be, especially around Albert Park. And I don't think anything's going to be stopping him if he manages to get to that point.
Yeah, well, it'd be intriguing. Obviously, let us know in the live chats as well, folks, as to who you are supporting tonight. Who do you think's going to win the Australian Grand Prix tonight in the Creator Series? We saw a couple of flurries as well, some little bits of brilliance from Zafso as well. I think we've seen bits and pieces come from him. We actually earmarked RB as being a big danger for the Teams Championship, especially when we consider that Alex Gillen is part of this combination. If you look at the combination of Zafso and Alex Gillen as a whole, I mean, that is a very imposing lineup on any championship. Obviously, no Gillen tonight, but Zafso, there were some moments there, Tom, of the old Zafso from Season 1. Do you think there's an opportunity we could see him come back in and maybe strategize his way to the top here in the race?
Oh, almost certainly. We've seen it in races gone past. Look at the start of the season where Ben won in Kota. A lot of that was to do with the strategy. Yes, the safety car came out at the right time, and obviously things played into his hands. But if you look back at the start of the race, he was almost forward-thinking to a situation that could come to his own hands. So if Safso gets that element of his race right, I think, again, he's in for a really good shot here.
Yeah, I think so. He's going to absolutely be, I think, a force to be reckoned with, I think, on his day as well. We are, incidentally, going to speak to Formula Karim, our pole sitter, ahead of the race coming up later on tonight. Karim, can you hear us?
Yes.
Formula Karim, clutch lap towards the bitter end. I must say, we looked at some of the laps that came in prior to yours. We were just speaking about it, actually. Could have very easily been a pole lap, the likes of Rasin Chai, GB68 as well, for that matter. Just goes to show how furiously fast and on point you have to be around Melbourne. I mean, the main dangers there, I suppose, track limits, I think, are obviously a major concern. We saw a few of them. Just how difficult was it to lay down that lap?
Yeah, I mean, the no DRS wildcard probably makes it a bit easier into the braking zones because you're carrying less speed, but it's still very tricky. Like the first corner, you can invalidate on the inside or the outside. The high-speed right-hander onto the main DRS straight. Obviously, we've got no DRS, but that's what I'm going to call it, the main straight.
We got you.
Yeah, it is tricky not to invalidate, but thankfully, I think like most people, I had a slipstream. You know, I've got one of the best teammates in the business, so thank you to Nick for that slipstream. I think Razin said he didn't have a slipstream, so to be that close without one, that's a bit scary, I'm not going to lie.
Well, there was a moment we thought that Razin would have taken it because it came right at the bitter end. We thought he had managed to nick it. It was a great lap, I think, by all intents and purposes from Rasin Jai. You, though, however, I mean, this could be a big race for you. You've had a phenomenal season. I mean, 2 wins already so far. The Italian job being a good weekend for you, taking victory at Imola. Monaco was also spectacular as well. You're in a situation at a track I think you could potentially thrive in. This is a street circuit, essentially, so not too far apart from Monaco, aside from the fact that you can overtake around this track. I mean, give us some insight. What are your thoughts and feelings? Have you got a plan, a strategy in mind ahead of what we're going to be seeing later on?
Well, yeah, I think this is usually a pretty good track for me, so I'm feeling confident around here, DRS or no DRS. I think it will be interesting to see what like strategies people take, not just with the tires, but with setup, because you know, do you go lower wings to give yourself mini DRS? Do you go higher wings to make yourself like almost impossible to overtake? It's tricky. I'm interested to see what everyone's setups and speed on the straight is going to be like. But yeah, it's usually a good track for me. At this point in the season, I'd like to build some consistency because I feel like that's been my biggest weak point so far. It's just like I've had these 2 wins, but the races where I'm not on the podium, I'm like P6 to P9, which isn't ideal. So maybe some consistency, but of course there's only one man that's 25 points ahead of me, and that's Benjamin Daly. So we got to try and beat him today in his home track.
This is true, and obviously no Alex Gillen tonight, which makes things a little bit more straightforward as well. Obviously, he's been part of this top-end battle over the championship. I mean, you just touched on it. Obviously, I mean, summarising your season so far, it's been all or nothing, really, hasn't it? If you haven't won, you've been generally outside the podium places, bar obviously the P2 you had back at Miami in that first race. Obviously, we all know what happened between you and Lolin Ober coming up towards the start-finish line. Are you anticipating any of these moments as well? Because we spoke about it prior. GB and Tim Marduk had a major crash at the very fast 9 and 10 coming out of Lakeside Drive. Obviously, major pinch point. Drivers go flat out that portion of track. Obviously, DRS isn't a concern. You've touched on that as well. Do you think we could see some carnage, some should we say, some lapses in judgment tonight?
Yeah, I think so. I think if there was DRS, it would happen the same way as it did with Ben and GB, because if you're in first position, there's no way you win the race with people having DRS behind you. Now, I think it's going to be the same sort of carnage, except it's going to happen earlier and it's going to happen, you know, in the braking zones, in the corners. People are going to try overtake sooner, I feel like, because track position will mean more
emphasis on the heavy braking zones, the big corners as well, going late, generally to try and force a move.
Yeah, probably. I think some elbows will be stuck out in the final few laps, but we'll see.
Well, we look forward to seeing it. To tell you what, Karim, thank you for joining us. Wish you all the very best ahead of the Australian Grand Prix tonight in the Creator Series. We'll see whether it turns out to be a victorious one for you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. I'll see you hopefully after the race.
hopefully we see you again. I mean, goodness me. Hey, listen, we got Daniel Gilligan back in the commentary box, everybody. Now, this is very different because we're going to talk to him about driving things as opposed to commentary, analysis, punditry stuff. Daniel, welcome back.
Hi.
This is a bit different. This is a bit different.
What I'm doing?
Usually we are. Well, Dan, usually you're with me and we're asking the questions, but this time I'm asking you the questions, which is intriguing. Yes. Quite a change of complexion here in the commentary box. So no trying to make me laugh. You know you can. Right, let's talk through it. Right, qualifying. Summarise it for us.
It's a session in which people try and set the quickest lap they possibly can.
No, I mean your performance, Daniel Gilligan.
Oh, my performance, I see. Slow. As expected. It's, I don't really play F1 24. I know,
No.
shock horror, etc., etc. I enjoy racing. I maybe enjoy it a bit less when I don't know what the game is doing when I start to turn through corners and the back end feels looser than a loose thing on a loose day on the show Loose Women. Yes, fun, etc.
I mean, is there any advantage to the fact that there's no DRS tonight? Are you taking any solace from that?
Yes. I don't know what it is yet, but yes.
TK, got any questions for Dan Gilligan?
I was going to try and ask a couple of questions, but I fear the most sarcastic response available at the time.
How dare you say I will do a sarcastic response? That is completely unfair, sir. That is unlike me at all.
Now, Daniel, we're obviously talking between friends here. There's no one watching along at home. I want to ask you an honest question.
I know there's no one watching. I've seen the numbers.
Was there a moment in your mind where you went, I really want to press this DRS button and try and pretend that I'm going faster than I'm meant to be?
To be honest, I would rather press a different button. It's this one that I have here on the stream deck.
This is where the fun begins.
But I'm holding that back for the start of the race, I think.
Goodness me. Can I just ask, thoughts on Tom's new rig?
Yeah, it's all right, isn't it? Not everybody needs to get a mortgage for a new rig, do they? Yeah,
Yeah, we're missing Tom tonight, by the way. Obviously, he's not racing here this evening, so we won't get to see it this time. It might already be broken. Yeah.
What a shame. Oh, dear.
Incredible. It's hearing me. Hey, Dan, honestly, we wish you the very best of luck. You're representing us commentators tonight, so we have got your back. We're hoping you're going to bring home the big points. Who knows? We could be celebrating a Gilligan victory. We'd love to see it.
And so would I. It's not going to happen, but, it's... It would be nice, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. At that point, I'd just retire from driving in Creator Series. 100% win record. Done. Easy.
Hey, well, listen, I'm hoping we do. I'm really hoping we do see it. But yeah, incredible stuff. Thank you so much, Daniel, for joining us. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you, everyone at home. And remember, have fun watching. Don't be a dick to people.
Thank you very much. That's Dan Gilligan, everybody. Ever the incredible human being. Honestly, I love spending time with Dan Gilligan in a commentary box. It is absolutely unbelievable. I believe we do have the starting grid coming up, guys. So just hold on to your hats. Let's run through how the grid's going to shape up ahead of the Australian Grand Prix. It's going to be some fight. Back of the grid, Hayden Gullis going backwards in qualifying. He'll be hoping that he goes forwards in the race. He starts 20th alongside Mike Stachio, who is subbing in for Formula Kai. P18 goes to Daniel Gilligan. We just spoke to him. He's stepping in place of Noiguera. Liam Hammond also coming in to replace the one, the only Alex Gillen, one of the championship contenders out of tonight's running. But Hammond steps in. Nick Flies, one half of the McLaren team, starting in 16th place. Grid Jokes, another reserve, stepping in place of Mr. Dale here this evening. P14 going to F1 Alex from Sauber. Scott Taylor, who looked extremely fast towards the start of the session and could provide quite the threat just outside the top 10. And you never know, we could see him in that top 10 come the checkered flag. P12, it's Adam Sanderson. Not necessarily his best qualifying performance, but we know he can perform in the race. Expect him to rise. Season 1 champion Zapso returns again, a winner of this race back in Season 1 as well on the run towards that championship. Let's see if he can strategize his way to the top once more. Gwatz lines up in 10th place for Alpine, replacing Tom for tonight's action. We have that guy Vince lining up in 9th place as well. It was a good qualifying session for Aston Martin. Ricky 03 lines up for Williams in 8th as well. He is furiously fast, lines up alongside Infratic, who only has one podium to his name, but is in his 93rd race appearance here in the Creator Series. An astonishing achievement. In 6th place, championship leader Tiamat Marduk. Two old rivals manacled together in 5th and 6th, incidentally. Remember when Meraki went toe-to-toe with Tiamat Marduk? Well, they're going to share the same row. Meraki, of course, also a former champion. He won it back in Season 4. Lolinoba in 4th place on the second row of the grid. A race winner already this campaign. Rasin Chai lines up in 3rd for Alpine. And then up at the top, we have GB68. Looked to take pole, but it was ripped away from him by Formula Karim, looking for his 3rd race win of the season. So there we have it, folks. Those are the drivers looking to get set ready for racing action. And you were quite right as well, Tom, about the wet weather being a factor. Truly extraordinary. Just give us your summary after this. Obviously, we saw the clouds coming in quali. We've now got rain.
Certainly do. That's tend to happen when the clouds do come over. Rain usually falls afterwards. I thought I'd just enhance my inner Gilligan there just to give some pleasure to the viewers. But no, it's going to be a wet one. As Max said in the press conference a couple of days ago, it's a little bit slippery when it's wet here. So you got to look out for that one.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's going to cause some drama. This is where strategy will play a vital role. I can tell you that all the drivers have selected intermediate tyres ahead of the race coming up now very, very shortly. But what an outstanding layout we have in terms of a starting grid to come. I mean, I do have to wonder, your big players, obviously former champions coming into this as well. The TMET Marduk-Meraki fight, we have seen that rivalry in the past. It all came to a head back in Season 4, incidentally, when Meraki won the title at Spa-Francorchamps. More fireworks could be had here this time at Melbourne. And then at the front row, Karim and GB. That's going to be a spicy run heading through towards turn 1, Tom. Who do you think wins in that encounter?
I think it depends who's braver on the brakes. Karim will have the outside line. In theory, he can carry it. But if GB just lets off, tries to force some space, I think that certainly will have to be afforded to him. Who knows what's going to happen, especially in the wet weather conditions. I wouldn't be surprised, and this would be the nicest possible way of saying it, we see some Bottas bowling Creator Series edition if Mike Stasio just decides to let off the brakes slightly.
Well, I tell you what, I'm gonna talk about the chat a minute. Obviously, chat, if you're watching, tuned in on Twitch and YouTube, please let us know whether you're tuned in on Twitter as well. Get involved in the chats, guys. Want to hear from you. Who takes victory here in the Creator Series tonight for the Australian Grand Prix? Let us know. Light up that chat. We want to hear from you, and we'll read out your answers on the broadcast. TK, I'm asking you to put your neck on the line. Take yourself off the fence. Your victor tonight for this Australian race.
I think, do you favour the home favourite TMET Marduk from 6th? I'll probably leave that one to you. So Lolly Noble would be my bet.
Deary me, the subtle digs here from the Creator Series team. Unbelievable. I had no idea you were in the pocket of Ratin Chai, TK. That is disgusting. But no, we have got Madman Marge 1307. Hayden going to reverse to win. Someway Adams says Nihal as well on Twitch as well. If you've been tuned in on YouTube, keep it coming. If Dan doesn't win, it's a fix, says Shaggy653. Keep them coming through, guys. Luke Sam, Ben to use the wrong formula and get the right answer for the W. It is absolutely possible. We have seen some crazy moments happen in the past. Jeff Staples saying Ben as well. So lots of support coming in for TMET Marduk, the wonder from Down Under, returning tonight at his home track, where incidentally, he was also a winner back in Season 2. And just like magic, Formation Lap is now underway. Formula Karim will lead them off the line to take them down through towards turn 1. He is going to be looking to put his car to the top and take the checkered flag from lights to flag for the first time since Safso did it back in Season 1, but that's going to be very tricky. So many variables to consider. I'm a bit concerned because there's Formula Karim on his own. The rest of the cars seem to have been slightly slow away here, TK.
Yeah, I think GB's got, as has Ricky. But the one I had questions about, Dan Gilligan got himself disqualified before anyone moved off the line there. Can I give a bonus point to anyone that did, or whoever managed to do that? Because I'm assuming he had no idea what was about to come for him in this formation lap.
I would imagine it was a bit of a mystery on his part as well. Nick Flies, also obviously a disqualification. We lost Scott Taylor as well. Ricky 03. Now that's going to be a concern if you're Ricky 03, and it's also a concern if you're GB. I mean, not getting these tyres or getting any temperature into these tyres at this stage, TK. If you're GB, especially at the very front of the field in terms of the start of the race, I mean, that puts you on the back foot, doesn't it?
It certainly does, especially with wet weather conditions. You want a little bit of heat into your tyres. They do work better at the higher temperatures. They'll be able to disperse more rain. I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to assume that's how it works. Heat equals more rain moved. But the one I want to talk about very quickly, Sanderson over the team radio is saying he wanted to take it very cautiously. I'm assuming he was talking about the race and not this formation lap.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Now, reading more of your comments there in the chat as well. Big Booty Brutus 69 saying Fabio for the race win. We got Ben from Charles 025044 as well. Quick note here, although, oh my goodness me, that's Hayden Gullis there for you folks. In fact, it was well timed because although Hayden has 2 pole positions, there's a little star, you'll notice, an asterisk there. two. They're not. We're not counting them necessarily as real pole position finishes. Would you agree with that, TK?
I don't count it as well. He started from the front. He's never qualified in pole position. That's my take on it.
I think you're absolutely spot on. The cars are getting set ready into their grid spots, and I must say this parking is very concerning. Nonetheless, running aboard with Rasin Chai as we await the lights to go red. Get yourselves ready, folks, for what will be, I'm sure, a hellacious ride around the Albert Park circuit, of course, situated around a large man-made lake as we get set ready to race now. As the lights, they're all lit. They go out, it's pedal to the metal, and it's go, 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 go. Great start for Formula Karim, and a steady start from GB as well. Rasin Chai in third, Tiemet Marduk and Meraki going at it as well in a battle over fifth place with Ricky 03 and Infrata going side by side on the run now out of turn 3. Very shortly out of turn 2 through towards turn 3, I should say. Lolinoba has pounced on Rasin Chai immediately now as they stretch down through towards the 90-degree right-hander, and Karim has sailed away here in this wet weather. The rain has not deterred him. It's Karim, GB now 1.4 seconds back, now 1.5 and falling with Lolinoba in third, Rasin Chai fourth. Tiemet Marduk has managed to get the up on Meraki coming through the first sector. They're in sector 2 now, rounding Lakeside Drive, and in behind, Tiemet Marduk all over the tail of fellow champion Rasin Chai, TK.
Yeah, Tiemet Marduk had a fantastic launch, got that initial move made on Meraki. GB didn't get what he would have liked. He was immediately under pressure from Razin, then Lolinoba, and the Aston Martin still looks to be suffering with the Haas looking towards the inside line as we make our way into the third and final sector. Surely he's going to try later on the brakes, hanging around the outside. The no DRS isn't seeming to worry Lolinoba as he's gone from fourth to second in just one lap.
A stunning start for Lolinoba. You're absolutely spot on. Fourth to second, and still, though, 2 seconds away. But remember, no DRS here in this race. Everyone's on an equal playing field, even if you lead in the race. And Tiemet Marduk around the outside of Rasin Chai as the two come together. Alpine and Mercedes meet, and they crawl over to the pit lane, the pit wall side, and then fly down through towards turn 1. And Tiemet Marduk moves up into fourth, ahead of Rasin Chai now, who's devoted to fifth. Meraki now also clipping his heels as they run out of turn 2, down towards turn 3. Tiemet Marduk, will he go late on the brakes? We got that guy Vince on the outside of Infratic as well. Ferrari meet Aston Martin as they now crawl around this 90-degree bend and around the next left, and that guy Vince up into 7th as well, and Zafso has moved back into the top 10 as he unseats Quats for that very same 10th place.
Yeah, Sasso starting to make waves here with the rain falling in Melbourne. Dat guy Vince, as you said, proving that he is once again that guy. Meraki stands ahead of him with Rasin Chai in tow, but the front three, or thought that was the front three for moments, we switch back to Hayden Gullis under pressure from Nick Flies, and I believe just in front of them, Grid Jokes as well.
Yeah, Hayden Gullis now, who's also had an incredible start. He's up to 13th. Remember, starting from the very back. Extraordinary, amazing from the Giraffe as he now flies through out of turns 9 and 10, and now making his way down through towards turns 11. What a start from Hayden Gullis now, but coming under fire from Scott Taylor in behind. We got wheel-to-wheel action between Grid Jokes and Nick Flies. Flies getting the upper hand as they make their way around. There's an instant to the back as well. Now, that looks like Hayden Gullis, I think. No, it's further back. It's Liam Hammond, I think, involved in that. Mike Stachio, Scott Taylor coming off the worst of it all. But a major moment coming out of turn 11 in sector 3 as Formula Karim takes the fastest lap, and he's 2.5 seconds clear of Lolinoba in second.
Yeah, there wasn't damage for Scott Taylor there. I think there was definitely damage for Liam Hammond, or at least one of the other cars caught in amongst that chaos. Could explain, yeah, Liam Hammond in towards the pit lane, but I think we'll be requiring a brand new front wing.
Yeah, that's not ideal at all, which means an unceremonious stop, which will lead to yet another tyre change. So it's going to cost them more time, given the damage implication, as we now see Tiemet Marduk getting a lovely run, heading in towards turn 6 and 7, and has managed to unseat GB over that third place, and needed to as well, as they look to try and gain on the back of Lolinoba, who's starting to escape as they now fly around Lakeside Drive once again. Tiemet Marduk consolidates in third place, but that can all change as we now watch as GB gets into the slipstream of the Mercedes. Mercedes-powered Aston Martin against Mercedes-powered, well, itself at this moment in time, flying through turns 9 and 10, and now on the outset, Tiemet Marduk in third, 1.5 seconds back from Lolinoba, but still exposed to cars behind. But no concerns of an overtake so far. Every car out on intermediate tyres. No tyre advantage at this point, and we have a yellow flag once more in Sector 3. A little bit of a moment, I think, with a Ferrari of Daniel Gilligan, I think getting caught up with Scott Taylor right at the back as they look to fly around, and Gilligan gets the rear end, stepped out again. A very near miss, very close call, heading out of turn 11 there, TK.
Genuinely could have been Fabio for all I thought there, until I saw the name Dan Gilligan, the rear end of that Ferrari, stepping out more than a few things that have happened this week. GB trying to attack Team Marduk, but with no DRS, of course, the wet weather conditions simply nullifying the wild card at the moment, but he just doesn't seem to be able to get the move made on the Mercedes in front of him at the moment. I think it's going to be a patience game.
Yeah, I think it will. It's always going to be a case of treading caution over conditions like this. Of course, we saw what happened under the formation lap. Several cars obviously not necessarily, well, should we say, coping with the fact that the throttle pedal might have been squeezed a little bit harder than perhaps was necessary. Of course, getting off the line in conditions like this is probably one of the hardest things you can do on this game in itself, especially when you don't drive it regularly, which is obviously something that Dan Gilligan stated that he doesn't do, and naturally now being, well, certainly being held victim at this point through the early stages of this race. We're on lap 4 of 58. Still plenty to go. GB sat in 4th and currently sat 5th in the championship as well, opening up for tonight's round around Melbourne here at Albert Park, as we now watch TMF Marduk's rear wing fly through the final corners on this very lap. Lolin Ober has managed to creep onwards by around 2.6 seconds. Well, 2.6 seconds behind Carib anyway, but beyond 2 seconds anyway on TMF Marduk as well. So Lolin Ober very much in no man's land, and Benjamin Daly's going to have to go slightly defensive. Definitely going to have some, or certainly make some gains under the pit stop phase. And with the lack of DRS, it's going to mean that trying to close these gaps, TK, are going to be harder, really, than usual, because obviously you can't get that drag, you can't work together. So it means that every place, every position really does count out on track.
Absolutely right. And what you've got to also take into consideration is the rain's really starting to hamper potentially with those race preparations. On a dry running here, you'd expect to see these corners taken at a considerable high speed. They'd get the runs onto the straight. The slipstream would really come into its own, but because of the rain, the wetter weather, they're going to have to take the corners, reduce speeds, not carry as much speed through, and that's actually hampering them later on, like here when we get onto the drive, and they just don't have that straight line speed to be able to attack when we hit the next heavy braking zone. Yeah,
no, absolutely right. No, a few of you are asking questions as to the position on DRS as we watch GB move back into 3rd ahead of TMF Marduk, utilising that slipstream as they head out of turn 10. No DRS is the wild card tonight, so it's not just the fact that we've got wet weather out on the track, it's an actual wild card that we're running. No DRS is permitted, even in dry conditions, for the drivers, which means that they are going to lose that little advantage. But then again, is it an advantage when nobody else has it either? Riccio 3 moves up to 8th place as well, ahead of Infratic, as they look to fight over the higher end points allocation as they head through the final couple of corners. Formula Carib taking the fastest lap of the race with a 1:28.499. Good display so far from him, and actually registered 2 purple sectors, one in the 1st sector and one in the 3rd as well. We currently watch Infratic still chasing after Riccio 3, who's had a solid start, but 3.2 seconds behind that guy Vince. It's been an uneasy getaway since the start of this race for Riccio 3, but has held position nonetheless as he started 8th on the grid regardless, but has still got a train of cars that are looking to nip at his heels. Hayden Gullis then moving up into 12th, has actually had a phenomenal start, TK.
He certainly has. I think him not qualifying, or at least reversing in qualifying, has kind of helped him. A lot of the drivers will have had that muscle memory of where to turn in under dry conditions and have done practice. Obviously, Australia being following the calendar of real world F1 has allowed them to know what the circuit is. They can get that muscle memory dialed in. Hayden's not qualified. He's not gone for the sweat. He's not gone for the practice. Whereas when everyone else is trying to break to the same spot they have done during qualifying, this is where he will be experiencing the same thing, but he doesn't have that muscle memory trying to override him at every turn.
Well, we're going to take a breather for now and head across to Clipbook Carl. Carl, what have you got for us?
Well, just to kind of show you how Scott Taylor's race sort of unravelled, particularly at lap number 2. Up ahead, plenty of cars, a conglomeration of cars coming towards the right-hander. Scott puts himself in position back to the racing line, nothing wrong with that, but then rear wheel on the grass, not your best friend by any means. Causes the spin by himself, and Liam Hammond already with front wing damage on the left-hand side with nowhere to go to avoid the Haas car. Also alongside that, we've got Mike Stachio's perspective. in the kick. Sauber, right at the back of the field, sees the ongoing action, sensibly chooses to go to the outside. So well done him. Final one for you. There's a lot of action going on. Ricky's battle with Fabio. Tremendous traction coming out of the chicane, then down the inside. Dives the Williams driver. Has himself ahead, but then Fabio with tremendous traction of his own complement on the outside line. Still side by side through the right-hander. A little bit argy-bargy, but then as they head towards the left-hander, plenty of space and racing respect from the two of them. In the end, Ricky and the Williams able to scythe his way through into P8.
Tenacious as always from Ricky03. Thank you very much, Clipbook Carl, for that insight. Once more, we are seeing yet more squabbling between TMM Marduk and GB68 further back. We've also got some wheel-to-wheel action with Meraki, as well as I think that guy Vince now trying to gain on the back of him on the run down through towards turn 11. So very close between those two. Here comes now the Red Bull and the Aston. That guy Vince silences Jake coming through turn 11 and rounding turn 12. It got very fraught coming through turns 9 and 10. They recovered and then battled wheel to wheel on the run down towards turn 11 as well. Zapso has managed to jump Ricky03 as well, and he's lost actually out to Infratic 2. So Ricky03 has lost out twice, and he could lose out 3 times, because here comes as well Gwatz as well as they come down now the long straight. Tim Marduk, fastest lap of the race, so he's working to try and close the gap on Lolinoba, but a major moment for Ricky03, who very, very nearly lost out 3 places with Nick Flies coasting up to his rear wing.
That he did. There's been a bit of an incident further back. Mike Stachio and Dan Gilligan, I believe, getting caught up in the final few corners. That did only cause a yellow flag. Nothing further to report on that front, as both drivers did fortunately get moving again. But whilst we took a brief break and spoke to Clipbook Corner, I was chatting to our weatherman, and he was saying, well, we're expecting rain to stop around lap 31-32 here this afternoon.
Yeah, it does say actually on our monitors 34 minutes until rain stops, so that will take us to around that portion. So sit tight, everybody. Sit tight. It could all change later into the race. We're running on board here with Rasin Jai now, flying through towards turns 9 and 10. And back on the power once more, feathering that throttle as he does. You can just see there the content look on the face of one Rasin Jai, because like we said before, a champion back in Season 5, the season after Meraki took his, as he now comes through the final few corners out of turn 11, turn 12 to come. Still chasing after GB, but quite content and happy to remain in behind. Of course, the race isn't one and done in the first 10 laps. You've got to factor in, of course, the strategy change, and if there is that drying track that we are believing to think that's a factor later into the race, and we could yet see yet further changes. But now as they rush down through towards turn 1 again, lap 9 of 58 begun, with Formula Krim at the head of the field, but has enlarged that gap between he and Lolinoba to 4.7 seconds. But credit to Lolinoba, we can't discount the fact that he's moved up from 4th on the grid up to 2nd. But I tell you what is spicy about those two is that massive fight they had, that brush up towards the line in race 1 at Miami, TK.
Certainly was. It was a fantastic bit of battling. It was fair. That's the more important thing about it. Yes, they had that little bit of contact right at the final, on the final lap across the line, but the majority of that racing was fair racing, and we came away from it going, actually, that was a pretty good spectacle to watch.
It was a big spectacle. They collided up towards the line. A major moment. Tim Marduk actually thought that he might be able to, well, he thought he might have been able to grab a victory heading around that final corner. Ended up with P3, but could have grabbed something distinctly more had they not made it across the line as quickly as they did. But now as we watch Ricky03 come through the very fast 9 and 10, and now a run down through towards turn 11 once more. Of course, this circuit opened back on the 20th of November 1953, was actually closed 5 years later and reopened on the 7th of March 1996, where it played host as the opening round of the Formula One World Championship. Of course, in recent years, it's all been about Bahrain, but now this season, we see it renewed at the very start of the calendar here in the Formula One World Championship as well. So great to see it back. Many would say where it should be, TK.
I am one of those people. There are 3 things that are important about F1 at the moment. Testing in Spain, Australia to start the season, Abu Dhabi to finish. And I am very strong-willed about all of those.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you're not alone. I don't think you're alone, in fact. It's been wonderful to see it all unfold. But let's watch now as we watch them round this next right-hander. We've got Brazil, of course, lined up to finish the season as well, which would be nice. And as we now head through the next right-hander. That's a lie, actually. Just utilising what's being said in the production chat right now, so pay no attention to me, folks. As we watch the battles unfold, Racing Chai and Team Mardik once again manacled together on the run through towards turns 9 and 10. I think what they did mean is that they would like to see Brazil to finish a campaign as well, as opposed to Abu Dhabi, which, yes, does make sense, because, of course, it used to be, or take pride and place at the end of a calendar. Here in lap 10, though, we have got a fight between Chai and Team Mardik. Team Mardik defending the place very well indeed. GB68 still holding on to third. Effectively, the cork in the bottle here that's kind of stopping them gaining anything on the back of Lolinoba.
It's an interesting one, because when you break down what's going on at the moment, that guy Vince can't really get past Razin or Team Mardik, but GB can't go anywhere either. If this was a DRS race, this is where we'd start to see kind of cars going past. They can work their way back to Lolinoba and Karim further forwards. Because, as you said, cork in the bottle. It is raining. We have to take that into consideration. But I think we're waiting potentially for a safety car, potentially for pit stops as well. And even then, I can't see much changing.
Yeah, no, neither can I. I think in the initial states, it's just going to be a case that drivers are going to be managing the race. I think the big factor will be changeable conditions should it come at this point, TK. Just a little note on Brazil being the end of the season. That could still happen here in the Creator Series. It is, in fact, around here on this calendar, there is a mystery. So you never know. We could yet find ourselves at Interlagos come the end of the campaign. So sit tight, everybody, as we now watch this scrap unfold here on circuit. We've got GB68 at the front of this field. 4 cars all fighting over a top 3 spots here in the initial stint as they now fly down through towards the fast left and right. And Team Mardik pounces now on GB and takes P3 away from the Aston Martin. But now GB can very easily fight back on the run down through towards turn 11. But is it sensible? Because down comes now Racing Chai in the inside of the Aston Martin as they now fly together. The tail's getting whipped out due to the greasy nature of this surface with the rain cascading. But Racing Chai forced to remain behind GB, and GB's teammate, that guy Vince, sat behind them waiting and watching all this unfold.
Certainly did. It was an opportunistic move from Team Mardik. Razin thought about it. He just backed off. He knows the race is long. He knows opportunities will once again present themselves. I think that's what he's waiting for. Vince is kind of playing support at the moment for his teammate. He's just going to sit there, maybe try and collect up any loose drops or anything that might happen further forward from him. But Baraki is in an interesting position. 1.2 off the back, and that is closing so much as these guys fight in front of him.
Yeah, I can tell you that Meraki's last laps have been absolutely tremendous. I mean, he's done 128.8. I mean, there are much of a muchness. Many of them are lapping around the same, but if you actually look at them in detail, if you're in that 128 and you're lapping in the mid 128s, then you're doing a really good job. Dan Gilligan at the bottom right of your screen, currently sat 18th place on the classification now. 3-second time penalty, though, added to his time, but there's quite a lengthy gap between himself and Mike Stachio in the Kick Sauber, who's 10.8 behind the Ferrari as he now rushes around this next strike, coming through turn 5. And next up, a run in towards turn 6 and 7, heading into sector 2. He's got 2.8 to find on Scott Taylor, who is sat in 17th and has also come off the back of that collision that he had not too long ago with Liam Hammond coming around turn 11 that Clipbook Carl had very kindly analysed for us, as we now watch Zafso with the sister RB to Liam Hammond, right in the midst of a P10 fight, but could yet become a P8 fight as he's on the back of Riccio 3, who in turn is chasing Infratic. Lap 13 of 58 in full flow, and now we can see Infratic actually pulling over to the pit wall side, just trying to drag Riccio 3 across. At the same time, Zafso being patient, not blinking for a single minute as they come out of turn 2. The very fast initial portion of sector 1, and we rejoin the battle for third as well. Team Mardik still holding that place, but GB, I'm sure, will be back to challenge. This fight is far from over, still very early in this race. But one thing's for sure, Formula Krim has taken full advantage of the breathing room that he has had. That 4-second gap that is now a 5.6-second gap.
Yeah, he's managing to bring it down. Well, managing to hold it at the moment. Lolinoba is in a world of his own. He's got nowhere to go. He's got a considerable number of seconds up the road to Karim. He's got a considerable number of seconds back to Team Mardik, and whether he drops off, tries to rejoin this pack, that's going to be the question that we're asking. There's a Williams further back trying to overtake a Ferrari. I'm assuming Riccio 3 on Infratic as well. Fascinating to watch both battles happening at the same time. But just mentioning when we saw Dan Gilligan on screen a few moments ago, I haven't seen someone that uncomfortable behind the wheel since I watched Luke Sam retake his driving test.
Goodness me. I tell you what, that's quite a traumatic endeavour, I think, for anybody, I think, at this point. But Dan Gilligan, 4.1 now off the back of Scott Taylor. Hayden Gullis also making moves as well, half a second in behind Nick Flies. Riccio 3, obviously we saw him in the bottom right of screen trying to chase down Infratic. Tiamat Marduk just rumbling over those curves as well under the slick conditions. That rear end starting to stick outwards as well. GB68 forced to take a different line on the run down through towards turn 3. We're now riding on board with Adam Sanderson, who's had a very difficult start to his race. Remember, starting P12 and now down in 15th, lost 3 places, and has got Grid Jokes for company, who's taking the helm of the Red Bull tonight in the place of Mr. Dale. I think, though, in the meantime, whilst things unfold, we can head across to Clipbook. Carl, what have you got for us?
Well, let's have a look and analyse the lap 11 battle with Tiamat Marduk and GB. Obviously, a little bit of agitation and desperation creeping in at this point. The front two getting away. It's paramount they got up the road. Ben deciding that really it was time to remove that cork from the bottle and get ahead and make high time while he can. So, overtake button on, down the inside. Simple but effective. GB backs out of it because the slipstream might not have DRS, of course, but slipstream, no matter what, still supremely strong. Apparently a collision with GB, but still Ben deploying the overtake and then behind. While all of that is happening, Razin then smells blood in the water, such as the compromised exit of the Aston Martin. He slams up the ERS into oblivion. Defending to the inside goes GB with a little bit of a squeeze, and then they run side by side. Gives Ben enough daylight to just clear away. And Razin calling out for track limits at this point, but they're all doing very well, or a lot of them are doing very well, just to keep it within those track limits, especially as the conditions get trickier and the track dries out.
Yeah, they can't afford to step too far. Carl, thank you so much, as always. We are watching the race unfold, chaps. Lads and ladies, everyone, wherever you're tuned in the world, welcome to the Creator Series. Here we have got a massive fight here in P10 in the offing, because Hayden Gullis is still moving his way up through the field. And I must say, one of the more impressive performances, TK, that we have seen so far in the race, actually lifting himself from the bottom in P20, now into P11, 9 places up. What did you see, TK?
It was Safso just behind Hayden Gullis, getting all sorts of loosey-goosey as he made his way through, or out of the first sector, the rear end of that car, wanting to step out more than he would have liked, but fortunately has kept the car pointing in the correct direction. But as you say, Hayden Gullis on an almighty charge at the moment. I think that has to be muscle memory. Not that I'm biased on that occasion at all.
No, not at all. We've got PS1 Hagrid in the bottom right of screen, looking menacing as always, embracing the Top Gun aviators as they now fly down through towards turn 11, and Riccio 3 in the midst of a fight with Infratic again. You just can't separate these two here in Australia as they very nearly run nose to tail. And Tiamat Marduk the first to jump. Now that is the first, should we say, strategic pit stop we have already seen. Obviously, remember, we've already seen a stop for Liam Hammond, but this is the first in-race stop that we have seen, and I would say that this is fairly early on. An interesting take, an interesting call here from Benjamin Daly at this point, TK.
I think it's, as you said, interesting call indeed. He's going to come out just ahead of F1 Alex in towards the corner, so he's managed to get up ahead of some of the other drivers. But if you break down where we were expecting that rain to come, around lap 32, this is bang on the halfway point here, so we're maybe not expecting a set of intermediates to go 30-35 laps.
Well, and he's not the only Mercedes to come in, because Adam Sanderson also opted for a jump as well, albeit he's 16.3 in behind Tiamat Marduk. So maybe Mercedes knows something the rest of the grid doesn't, though F1 Alex also came into the pits. So they, all three of them, on fresh intermediate tyres, obviously expecting the rain to stay with us for a great deal of time. I can tell you that in accordance to our telemetry screen, it's 21 minutes until the rain is, well, suspected to stop. So we will wait and see. We'll keep you updated to those of you who are tuned in here on this broadcast. But there's Formula Karim, current race leader, 6.1 in the clear, with Lolin Ober in second place as well. We're running on board with Lolin Ober as we speak. Of course, the front two, as we said before, both have won races this campaign. GB now with Tiamat Marduk having that pit stop now leads the trio of cars, nearly 4 cars in fact, with Meraki joining the party, down through towards turn 1, and Rasin Chai is going to make GB's life a little bit of a misery here as well. Coming out of turn 2 on the run down towards turn 3, will the Alpine opt for a pass now, heading down in towards the right-hander? No, he's going to remain sensible, waiting behind, doesn't want to leave anything far too late, because you can't recover necessarily that well under these slick conditions, and we've spoken about track limits too. These drivers not risking anything, and just look at how close they were to the barrier on the run out of turn 5 as well. It got oh so close. Turn 6 and 7 to come, a trip around Lakeside Drive, but you never know. Rasin Chai might fancy his chances coming down in towards turns 9 and 10. He's in the wheel tracks, he's gaining that front nose cone on the Alpine, starting to move into position. He's going to have the inside line coming in through towards turns 9 and 10. Doesn't even need the apex, will lead GB before the apex. Coming out of turn 10 now, and it's GB down to 4th, Rasin Chai up to 3rd.
Beautiful move from Raz in there. Used the ERS. He didn't use the DRS, and used the slipstream as well. Got the move done inside line, handed itself favourably to the Alpine there. And as you said, before they even reached the apex, got the move done, and GB will just sit in behind in P4. We've had 2 more drivers in towards the pit lane, Grid Jokes and Gwatz as well, opting for a fresh set of intermediate tyres. As you said, I don't think this rain's going away anytime soon.
No, Adam Sanderson, just key notes here, TK, actually fastest in the first sector in this last lap, has actually managed to register a 30.793, which is impressive. So there is some pace here for Adam Sanderson. One has to wonder whether the move on to the fresher intermediate tyres has caused quite the difference. And I tell you what, it's made a difference to Tiamat Marduk, because he just registered a 1:28.244, so a strategic stop to generate more pace, just prior to the rain suspecting to end. Maybe this is a power play on Tiamat Marduk's in his mind's eye, just trying to get some sort of an advantage. Knew that he wasn't going to make any gains under the situation they were in. He had no choice in his mind. Just make the stop, get onto a fresh set of tyres, get the pace, try and pull off an almighty undercut. I mean, it's a swerve in comparison to what other people have done, but it could prove to be profitable come the end of the race, TK.
I think it's going to be that beneficial thing. If you look at how much some of the other drivers are struggling, take Safso for example. We just saw how squiggly he was getting in towards that second sector. Ben's absolutely flown past him. He gets the traction out of the corners, and that's been absolutely crucial. Even if the rain goes now to say lap 40, maybe even to lap 50, Ben's got that undercut should we see continuing rain conditions. But if we're approaching what we think we're approaching, lap 30, 35, when dry conditions come, he's going to have better tyres now for the next 10, 12, 15 laps. And if he wants to keep pushing, he can afford to push where everybody else has to defend from this point.
Yeah, and it could be well-timed as well. Incidentally, purple in the first sector for Gwatz at this point too, so he's nicked that away from Adam Sanderson as Tiamat Marduk goes and sets another fastest lap. The first 1:27 I think we've seen so far in this race too, so there is some major improvements to be had out there, and that is nearly 4 tenths faster than Formula Karim at the very top of our timing screen. So very well done from Tiamat Marduk, just trying to unleash, trying to generate some pace, trying to close the gap by utilising a different strategy, going a different way. Now he has got a string of cars in front of him that include Nick Flies, Hayden Gullis, Infratic as well, further up later on as well. But in the immediate, it's all about Flies and Gullis, because Gullis is 2.6 behind Fabio's Ferrari as they now rush down through Lakeside Drive. This time they'll swing round in towards turns 9 and 10. You can just see in the distance Nick Flies trying to fly closer to the back of Gullis' tail on the run in towards the fast semi-chicane, and now back down this next long straight. And just look at how much Tiamat Marduk has managed to close on the back of this duo now. Coming in towards turn 11, Nick Flies just a little look down the inside, but obviously not opting for an overtake this time. He's going to be a little bit more cautious, but Benjamin Daly knows he must make the overtake for this strategy to work as he now comes up through towards this next left-hander. I would say and suggest it's more likely he'll utilise the home straight.
I think almost certainly you can see that dry line forming, and I think a few of the cars have had to use the wet conditions or the wet patches of the circuit to cool their tyres. Ben now goes for it on Nick Flies, easy overtake in the end, not even having to use the rear wing opening, and that is how easy it is being for Team at Marduk at the moment. Hayden Gullis becomes his next victim as we head into turn 3 and 4. He's going to send it from that far back. He's got so much confidence on the new tyres, and Team at Marduk from out of nowhere up into P9.
He's not wasting any time at all, is Tiamat Marduk now. He's up into the top 10. He's in the top 9 and now has 3.1 seconds, now 3 seconds to close on Infratic in P8, and the Ferrari just blinking out of our vision as we pan the camera across the Mercedes that is now within 3 seconds. It's within 2.9. He is really starting to bring that delta down, and I'm sure now other drivers are going to be quaking in their boots with the fact of the matter that a Mercedes has gone on that alternate strategy. Adam Sanderson not having quite as such luck. 2.1 seconds behind Gwatz, but still on better rubber. So we'll see how it works out for him later into the session. We might see other drivers perhaps opt for the pit stops. Maybe their intermediates are starting to fall off. We'll wait and see. Fabio in P8 on the tail of Riccio 3. They're about to have a trio of cars come up to join them here. A 2-car fight is about to become a 5-car fight.
Certainly is indeed. Weatherman update, 15 minutes until it stops raining. Take that about a minute and a half a lap. That's 10 laps of racing, ladies and gentlemen, at home. And that is about lap 31-32 once again. Team Marduk still flying. And I think you mentioned earlier some of the drivers might be opting to go for a new set of intermediates. I think at this point they've left it too late. They can't afford to only go on intermediates for 9 or 10 laps and then have to box for softs or dries again. So I think they're stuck at an impasse at the moment. They can't afford to box. But also, they've got Tiamat Marduk absolutely storming up from behind them, wanting their position, and also wanting the horse they rode in on.
Yeah, and he's a second a lap faster than all of them at this point as well, TK. He is really starting to putting the car to work anyway. 1.6 behind Infratic, who is now 3/10 away from Riccio 3 in front of him. Meraki on the tail of that guy Vince has got 2 seconds to find though on the Aston Martin, which is quite a ways to go as we now watch Fabio make his way through turns 9 and 10. Very tricky portion of circuit, especially over the greasy curbs as they now head down towards turn 11 this time. Tiamat Marduk now 1.3 behind this duo as they now come in towards the right, just clipping that curb on the inside, taking a little bit on the left as well. And you just see how the car is drifting out there on the circuit too, and Tiamat Marduk now within a second. Not that DRS is a factor, not that it would be under the circumstances of wet conditions, but there is no DRS wildcard here tonight. It's all down to ERS management and tyre management here at this point. The drivers making use of their natural skills to make the most of this race. And just look at that, a 1:27.7 from Tiamat Marduk. That's another 10th faster than what he was before. So beyond a second a lap faster than any other car on this grid right now on the run down through towards turn 3. Can't quite get the move on Fabio just yet, but he's got to clear these two for this strategy to work more effectively.
He can take those inside lines. He can dive late if he wants to. We saw that on Hayden. We saw it on Nick as well, down the start-finish straight. He doesn't have any limit to where he wants to send this car from. If Fabio has to brake at the 100-metre board, Ben can afford to brake at the 50-metre board. That's the difference we're really starting to see in the tyres at the moment. Fabio's going to try and box him off, though, as we head through Lakeside Drive. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything on the defensive team of Marduk here. Swoops around the inside line. The question is, will he go for 2? Not on this occasion, but Riccio 3 counting his chickens, certainly before they could have hatched.
Well, the second one might be coming sooner than we expected. Here he comes now, wheel to wheel between Riccio 3 and Tiamat Marduk on the fresher rubber. Moves up into 7th place. Careful not to outbrake yourself. A wonderful switch back from Riccio 3, who can't harness it. Instead, it's Benjamin Daly, who manages to hold position in P7, retaining it away from Riccio 3. And Infratic down in 9th as well. Next on his list is Meraki, who is 8.4 seconds up the road, but keenly enough, it's 1.1 seconds the better in Tiamat Marduk's favour with these fresher tyres. It's making such a difference. If you want to know the difference in age, there's 15 laps between the tyre sets of Meraki and Tiamat Marduk, so there's going to be so much more grit on the Aussie's car.
Absolutely night and day difference in these tyres at the moment, and Ben will be feeling that. You saw how late he braked to get past Riccio 3. Ricky went for the switchback, which could have been slightly set up, maybe attempted it a little bit too late, but he couldn't get the grip out the corner. That was the key factor in it. You saw the car start to squiggle and squirm, and he had to just slow down, take his foot off the throttle and recover that car in a straight line. Otherwise, I think he would have found himself in more trouble with Fabio chasing him behind as well. But look at the gap already into the 7 seconds between Meraki and Timo Marduk, keeping an eye further forward on Razin and GB as they make their way through the third and final sector. We're approaching half-race distance here, and I think all the creators will be happy to get out of the wet weather conditions rather quickly.
Yeah, an almighty game of chess is now being put together on this, well, for this race. Obviously, it's all important for the championship. And Formula Karim will be hoping it goes his way because he came into this race third in the championship. But pole position was huge. Managing to recoup, at least gain another point onto the board. But yet again, he could yet claim even further points. 25 could be on the cards here for Karim on top of the point that he's already managed to obtain in terms of the pole position. So let's wait and see whether he can pull that out the bag. He is still 4.7 seconds clear of Lolinoba, but Lolinoba doing a great job in terms of his own laps as well, though Karim over the last lap was nearly 4/10 quicker than Lolinoba in second place. So we'll see how this factors in coming in towards the latter stints. Obviously, remember, there are still pit stops to be had across the board. We are factoring in as well changeable conditions. 10 minutes is now the point in time where we're expecting this rain to dissipate. GB68 down in fourth as well, half a second away from Rasin Chai. That battle for third has rumbled onwards right through. I think this is probably a good time to go and speak to the one, the only, Clipbook Carl. Clipbook Carl, what's new?
Well, I'll tell you what's new. Let's have a look at Benjamin's rise through the ranks. So, here he comes. The question he was asking here, the question pursing on his lips was, how do we deal with Hayden Gullis? Well, the answer is switch on the overtake button and, well, something like that. Down the inside, of course, with significantly newer tyres, much fresher rubber, and Benjamin Daly loving life on the newer tyres. Alongside that, the battle with Fabio and Ricky. Ricky almost getting the slip on him with a sumptuous switchback. Almost made it happen, but with the condition of the tyres, it's a game of whether you choose to fight it or whether you're just being too overzealous at the time. You should really just be thinking about your own race and retaining your pace. Once again, it's child's play. Tremendous traction on the tyres. Blam the ERS into overtake, and then by the time you make the apex, just leaves it in medium. They've been switching ERS modes a lot, particularly making use of non-ERS, but when the tyres are that fresh and you have that much grip to use, there's no reason why you can't deploy those higher modes. Just some info on tyre wear, by the way. The leader's on around 50% tyre wear, so Tiamat Marduk could have a great chance if the rain is here to stay.
You're absolutely right, Carl. Obviously, that's going to put them in a vulnerable position here, Tom. Obviously, looking ahead and looking at some of these names. Obviously, Formula Karim, 50% left. They're going to have to start conserving at the same time. Going to have to start monitoring. Obviously, you get closer and closer to the risk of puncture, but it's just the sheer matter of slipping on this very greasy surface. You've got to be so careful out there. And when the strategies come around as well, it's all about pinpointing when the right time is to box. There are just simply so many variables for these drivers to deal with. And Timo Marduk, essentially, just given his strategy choice, has underwritten so many of those variables anyway. He can go faster on this compound. He's got no fears. He knows he's going to be quicker than everyone else. And just look at the gap that he's managed to bring down on Meraki already. It's 5.4 seconds now between them as they now make their way down on lap 26 of 58. We're watching the battle for P3. It's Rasin Chai ahead of GB at this stage. But again, I'm sure we'll see them continue to switch as they head down towards turn 3 this time. We've got a yellow flag in sector 3 as well. Looks like there's a Red Bull or an RB off. I think that might be, is that Liam Hammond who has made a mistake, or is it somebody else? Sapso.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened with Safsa. I think maybe just out braking himself slightly. We've seen seen on the back end, Scotty and Carl both collecting clips where drivers are really struggling with the tyres. Look at the rear ends on the V-Cub kicking out with every single turn. He's trying to send the car in. He's trying to put power to the rear wheels, and the car is just not responding. Tyres, I think, are absolutely gone and buried for that V-Cub.
Yeah, no, I think obviously you can just see how much it's affecting him right now. He's trying to keep it together. Just look at how furiously the tail is flicking outwards on Safso's car. A very unceremonious spin coming through the third section. Just look at this right now. The rear end stepping out on Safso's RB. Goodness me. Yeah, I think he might be having a bit of fun out there. Whether this looks far too extreme to me. Zasso down in 16th place, obviously just trying to keep control of it. But I think this might be in jest more than anything else here, TK.
Yeah, certainly is. One thing I'm going to point out, rain has stopped. It is drying up on this circuit. No more rainfall here in Albert Park, especially confirmation from a few of the other drivers as well. They have got no more rain. We are going to see dry tyres imminently. We're going to see dry running imminently. But the question is, how long do you stay out when the track is this greasy and when you've got Team at Marduk still bounding down on you with fresher rubber?
Yeah, it's incredible, really, because according to, obviously, our telemetry screen, still 6 minutes to go. But then again, this is where telemetry data can be, on the odd occasion, not necessarily reliable. Here comes Team at Marduk again, 3.6 now behind Meraki, who is now flirting with a second gap behind Guy Vince. He's certainly not finding it easy out there, Jake, in the Red Bull. Currently sat in 6th spot. In terms of the times in the last lap, it was a fastest lap for Team at Marduk, and he's just gone purple again in the first sector, so he knows that it's now or never, because this strategy, it's all considered. He probably could have done with actually a little bit more wet weather out on the circuit to get the most out of these intermediate tyres and try and prolong the pain for everybody else on very worn inters. But let's wait and see what Ben can pull out. Obviously, it's still looking quite greasy out there. There is still a little bit of spray off the back of those rear tyres. He's going to want to try and stay out for as long as possible and hope that it still remains greasy here for the foreseeable. But I hate to say it, by the looks of it, the skies are getting clearer. It's looking certainly less damp, not as many droplets, if any. I'd say we're going to be in dry contention very soon.
I would be surprised if we see drivers in this lap, and there we go. I think that's either GB or Guy Vince in for pit stops. It is going to be Vince in as drivers do stay out. Let's see what the Aston Martin team have favoured in terms of tyres. Of course, hard tyres still banned under this wildcard, so mediums going on Vince's car.
Yeah, medium tyres have been opted for Guy Vince. We've got a 3-second time penalty for Daniel Gilligan. That's not ideal at all, adding already to the penalty he managed to pick up. It's very tricky around this track. Obviously, track limits again, like we said before. You're right on the brink of danger when you factor in those curbs as well. And just seeing there the rear end stepping out a little bit now on Ben's car too. Now, those tyres are going to start shredding even more as the track gets drier. So he'll lose some of the advantage that he had once had. Though, as we said before, in terms of certainly laps, he has got the fastest lap so far to boot, a 1:26.9, which in comparison is actually 1 point, I would say actually just beyond 1.4 seconds faster than Meraki in front of him. Infratic now picking up a 3-second time penalty, which is also less than ideal. Adam Sanderson in the last lap going purple in the first sector. We got another yellow flag as well. This time it's sector 1, and it looks like F1 Alex, I think, has had a problem. He's just put on fresh medium tyres, so obviously just trying to almost acclimatise that new slick rubber on what is a wet surface at the moment, TK.
Yeah, still wet, still greasy, and I think we've seen or heard about the possible issues that you could face with that. You've gone too early. DRS hasn't even been enabled. Yeah, our drivers won't be able to use it, of course, but Karim's still storming past. Such like it's another penalty. I think that's Scott Taylor who's getting a little bit loosey-goosey on those mediums. But Team at Marduk, 1.3 seconds off the back of Meraki at the moment. The gap he's closed is absolutely incredible, and he'll be hoping the laps stay like this for as long as they possibly can. The track will stay greasy. His intermediates keep working. That's what he'll be hoping and praying for.
Yeah, he certainly will. He was actually purple in that last sector as well on the last lap, taking a purple lap as well. Another fastest lap for the Aussie, 1:26.925, and is currently sat half a second behind Meraki. He's finally caught up to the back of the Red Bull and now bringing himself into contention with those further up. More yellow flags now, this time in sector 3. And it looks like another disaster. Is it Zafso again? I think it might be. Yes, he's falling down the field and has dropped behind F1 Alex and Daniel Gilligan. Here comes Tim Marduk up the inside of Meraki and moves into 5th. And in the process, purple in that middle sector with an 18.8. He is absolutely flying out there now. And apparently, in accordance to what we're seeing in chat, is currently minus 2.85 on fuel. The drama could yet come at the very end of the race for Benjamin Daly. This could go wrong yet, TK.
Certainly could do indeed. The odds of a safety car here, especially in the wet, are incredibly high. I think he was almost banking on one, as you saw earlier. It's minus 2.85 at the moment. Back when we had the latest stint of the wets, he was minus 2.15. He's losing the fuel so considerably over the course of the last few laps. He's pushing hard to try and recuperate the early pit, and that is a house off the track. I'm assuming Scott Taylor couldn't get the brake pedal working.
Could be that, maybe a combination of blue flags as well to a certain degree as TMF Bardic laps him coming down through towards turn 3, now through towards turn 4 as well. He's got Rasin Chai next on his list, 2.8 is the gap. Over the last lap again, it was another fastest lap for Benjamin Daly, 126.797. As we said before, purple middle sector. And he's going to start putting those tyres to work again, this time on Rasin Chai. Needs to try and make this strategy work for him by closing the gaps on every single driver. Catching Formula Crim, though, might be too much of an ask before the dries really kick in, TK.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's that crossover period at the moment. Do you take the risk? Do you try it? I mean, even softs for a little bit of time could be a plausible deniability, but then, of course, you don't have the track temperature to get them working. Traditionally, this is where we see the hards. They don't need the track temperature to go working as well, but obviously, banding Creator Series, they're forced onto the mediums, which is something we don't often hear ourselves say. Well, you've got to wait for the track to warm up before they become usable.
Yeah, absolutely right. Obviously, that's the case of changeable conditions. It's all, you've got one eye on the temperature gauge, obviously just seeing how the track is feeling. Obviously, hoping that it gets, certainly if you're looking to jump onto a slick set of tyres, you're hoping that the track temperature starts to grow. But another purple third sector here for Benjamin Daly, as he now sets a 126. Well, he already set a best lap of 126.7. Last lap was a 126.9 as that guy Vince now on medium tyres. Effectively, a net race leader on medium rubber. We'll be hoping that he can put them to work now. He'll have fresher rubber with Riccio 3 in behind. Gwatz set in the fastest lap now with a 126.526. So a good job from Gwatz, who is still on his intermediate tyres as things stand. So I would argue that at the moment, unless that guy Vince proves us different, that the Inters are in the best space still. Now, I would say at this stage, as that guy Vince does cross the line, there is still some work for the track to do before these slicks get up to the right level of grip for these drivers. So there are still many question marks in terms of what the best tyre compound is. I can tell you that Benjamin Daly went purple again in the first sector, but that's just been stolen by his teammate Adam Sanderson. So I would say we're still under Inter conditions at the stage, TK.
Yeah, almost certainly into conditions at the moment. The minute we see DRS enabled, that's probably when we're going to start to see the majority of drivers diving onto the slick compound. But Rasin Chai here, I was about to say, wasn't going to have a defence for the Australians. He dives in towards the pit lane, probably to avoid any further embarrassment, especially as the track does start to dry up. 3 cars down ahead of TMF Bardic, who now sets another purple fastest lap. GB Lolly Nova and Karim will be absolutely quaking in their boots. The Australian, well, there's no other word to say it, he's flying.
Well, that's a 26.1. That is an unbelievable lap there from Benjamin Daly. And it was a purple third sector to boot too. And if you want to know how that compares across the grid, especially those that are also on intermediate tyres, bear in mind Karim Lolinoba and GB are all on 31 lap old intermediate tyres. Benjamin Daly was incidentally 1.2 seconds faster than GB. He was also 1.6 seconds faster than Formula Karim over the course of his best lap in best lap comparisons. And I'm talking last lap comparisons as well, as we watch TMF Bardic around Lakeside Drive, chasing after GB now in his Aston Martin. He's already managed to coast past Rasin Chai earlier on as Chai came into the pits, and he'll be hoping that his medium tyres help him in terms of his very own undercut, and sits in front of Meraki, also jumped onto that medium tyre. We've got Infratic as well yet to box. DRS now enabled, so the dry conditions now coming home to roost. Is this the point in time where the slicks come to life? I think so, because Meraki has gone purple with an 18.8 in the middle sector, TK, and TMF Bardic is in.
Yeah, front 4 all in. Karim, Lolly Nova, GB and TMF Bardic, and the medium tyre I think will be the equal choice amongst the board. All of them choosing for the yellow ball Pirelli, and let's see where they come out. Question will be, where can Rasin Chai get that car whilst the rest of them parade out of the pit lane?
Yeah, Rasin Chai now round in the final corner. We can see TMF Bardic coming out through the pit escape. Formula Karim already on his fresh medium tyres. He's 3.6 seconds clear. And Benjamin Daly, the work obviously, it was successful, the run on the intermediate tyres. But I would say that he hasn't really lost or gained any places, should we say, making his way through. In one case, though, you could say that he's lost out to Lolinoba and GB to a certain point, but he is not too far away from GB's rear wing. But now the main issue stands here. at this point now. TK, the fact that we've got DRS enabled, that's all fine and well, but the wildcard tonight is no DRS. They can't use it to close these gaps.
Absolutely right. They'll be annoyed at that. They'll be wanting to use all the DRS zones available around Australia. Of course, there's a several number of them that can quite often help, hand a helping hand to try and overtake the driver in front. The most notable there in towards turn 9 and 10. Alas, they will not be able to use it. And should they use it and gain a notable advantage, it will face, let's say the black flag of disqualification.
Yeah, it will be met with happy or smiling faces from the race stewards. Plenty of traffic out there on track as well for the cars to deal with up at the front end. There's Infratic, who has got 3 seconds of time penalties against him at the moment. 3 seconds in comparison to the 2.2 means he would forfeit P8 and Nick Flies in behind should it stay like this, but obviously we've still got a hefty portion of the race to go. Racing Chai now fastest out on the circuit. Meraki now registers his own fastest lap with a 1:24.977. We're creeping downwards, the time is dropping and the track level in terms of temperature is rising. Tiemet Marduk now 6/10 away. He's brought himself to within touching distance of GB68. Nick Flies going fastest. The track is going to continue to rise, and a wonderful exit for Tiemet Marduk and a slow one for GB as they come out of turn 5. Oh, it looks like, was that Dagovic? No, it was GB. GB slow on the run out of turn 5, and they're going to run wheel to wheel. Ground lakeside drive now this time. Take rain out of this equation. It's a dry race, and GB has held his own and held P3 in this fight. But how long can he do so with Tiemet Marduk now on his tail?
Certainly is. Tiemet Marduk will be lower on fuel. Daniel Gilligan goes for a spin further back. The Ferrari getting it all loose out of turn 10. Sits rather abandoned at the corner. Almost took out Ben there as well, as Ben does manage to dispatch. Oh, GB, who's that? The Alpine of Razin Chai into the barrier.
Safety car. My goodness me, a safety car out on track after Racing Chai lost the car coming out of turn 11. My goodness me. Now, there's only one man we can talk to under this circumstance right now. It's Clipbook Carl as Karim makes his way around. Carl, over to you.
Well, gosh, haven't I got some humdingers for you whilst the safety car's out. Well, first of all, this was the conundrum that everyone found themselves in. That guy Vince, first of all, through turn number 3 he goes. Watch the virtual mirror at the top, watch that kick Sauber. At this point, medium tyres, more suitable for an Eskimo, quite frankly, with how cold they were in the wet conditions. Vince immediately saying it's way too early, and as a result, Guatsu was 2 seconds behind, eventually ends up catching up and overtaking him for position. We then have the other side of the coin, though. If you didn't pit, if you pushed the intermediate tyres too much, you ended up like Safso's situation. No mistakes made into the corners, just on the brakes, overcooking it as that rear left on 80%. Such was the abrasion of the surface, and then trying to plant the... It's the most helpless feeling in the world when you slam on the power at full throttle and hope the car will stick. It didn't stick, I can confirm. And PS1 Hagrid with a Rictum Sempra into the barrier, front wing damage and all the rest, up to 81% on the tyres. And then we come to Tiemet Marduk, who now can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, because as he came out of the pit lane, nothing hugely happening, made a bit of a mistake at turn 3 that you'll see in a moment's time, but the fuel situation was rather grim indeed. Goes wide at turn number 3, not that it mattered, got straight into the nitty-gritty of things with GB, glorious battle between the two of them, but he was down 3 laps on fuel, so a bit of a reprieve for Tiemet Marduk, as he can now get to some fuel saving.
Well, Carl, thank you so much for those scoops indeed. How about that, folks? Saved by the bell, in this case, the safety car for Tiemet Marduk. Incredible. 3 laps down on fuel, TK. Very close to the brink come the end of the race, I'm sure. Very difficult to save, especially when you're pushing for a race win. Not only has he been saved, it's not just the fuel he saved his strategy as well at the same time.
Absolutely right. He's managed to, well, he will be able to recover that fuel now. He can put it into the low mode, recover as much, let that car just sip a little bit on the fuel as it progresses through the circuit. But interestingly enough, you mentioned earlier about Ben, where you say he hasn't really lost anything from that earlier pit stop onto the intermediate, or second set of the intermediate. In my opinion, he got safety from that. He didn't have to worry about tyres going longer. Should we have seen rain continue longer, that's where he would have worried. He got a little bit of safety from that. He knew he could afford to push, and I think actually it paid off rather well for him.
And the big win as well is those deltas coming down. We've now got Formula Karim dropping and losing that advantage that he had out of the pit lane, out of the pit stop. And I'd imagine he's feeling somewhat aggrieved now because there's plenty of big players behind him. We know that Lolinoba's got pace. We know that obviously Tiamat Malik's got pace. GB's got pace as well. Meraki in 5th as well. I mean, let's just talk about this as well. Obviously, we'll go back to Clipbook Car because I think he's got some intel on the spin, I think, that led to the safety car.
Indeed, I do. Razin Chayev, I was going to absolutely praise, first of all, because the avoiding action he took to avoid the stranded Scuderia Ferrari of Daniel Gilligan was absolutely astonishing. So well done him, first of all. That's about as good as it gets, unfortunately, because to turn on the right-hander, here we go. Slam on the brakes, 50-meter board, watching the battle up ahead. Razin saying, goodness me, but recovering from his near heart attack. And then on the curb he goes, not quite dry enough though, loses the traction on the rears, and then he says something that I can't really say because I'll get a 50 grand fine from the FIA. But key thing I want to note is it's going to come down to 1, having a slipstream, but 2, battery is going to be crucial as well. Normally in a DRS train, you can save that battery, flick it down into none, spend that time behind another car saving that battery. You can do a little bit with the slipstream, but it will be as much on the defense as it is the offense. So watch the battery usage because it's going to get spicy.
Yeah, because essentially it's covering for what they've lost in terms of DRS. Thank you so much, Carl, for that. Obviously, this is the main factor, isn't it, TK? A lot of it's going to be around ERS management, especially given the fact that we've got no DRS to play with. ERS is going to be their best friend in terms of trying to manufacture overtakes in a straight line.
Absolutely right. ERS and slipstream, they're the two that are going to add up to any overtake here this afternoon. That's the factor that they've really got to focus on. And we saw Ben working it very, very well. He would sit behind, he would drop the ERS onto none, and as soon as he was ready to pounce straight onto overtake and sent it, and it worked really well for him.
Yeah, and a brilliant race as well. We've spoken about Hayden Gullis. I know the chat has obviously alluded to it. Jeff Staples, thank you so much. Tuning in on YouTube, by the way. I mean, he's up to 6th place now, Tom. I mean, a brilliant race so far. Obviously, he was selling a dummy, I would say, during qualifying by driving backwards through the course of the session. But what a performance from him. Generally not someone we associate with, high-end, top-end performances through the course of a race, but has managed to fight his way further up the field. Started in P20, he's up 14 places. What a performance, Tom.
Absolutely fantastic drive from himself. He should be very proud. If not getting nosebleeds where he is at the moment, Mike Stachio almost goes into the rear of the car I assume to be Grid Jokes further back. That Rebel almost caught by surprise by the kick-salver kicking him in the rear. But going back to Hayden, where he stands at the moment, if you look at the tyres that he's on, he pit onto those before the safety car came out. 2 laps ago is when we saw the safety car. Razin, Ricky F and Alex, they all dived in then. Hayden's been on tyres 4 laps. He hasn't had a safety car gift him this position. He's done this all by himself, and he should be very, very impressed with this.
Yeah, I mean, essentially this is turned into a sprint now. We've got quite a string of drivers on similar age tyres. Karim on 5 laps, so is Lolinova. The one to watch could be Razin Chai still. Obviously, remember, bringing out the safety car, he's dropped as low as P10. He has got fresher tyres of anybody, 3 laps accrued onto them. Obviously, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be much faster. Obviously, there's only a thin threshold between them. I still wouldn't count out Razin Chai in this late stage. We've still got 20 or so laps to go. Obviously, I appreciate that that's going to come down quite a bit whilst the safety car still remains out. But you can never rule out a driver. When we look at his stats there, 8 wins and 18 podiums. One of the longest servants here of the Creator Series. And obviously, while we talk about Infratic and Sasso for that matter, who have got unassailable numbers of appearances in the Creator Series, Razin Chai in his 84th race here in this EA Sports F1 Creator Series. And obviously with his record, his 15 poles, his 18 podiums, 8 wins as we have seen, you would never want to write him off. And is that a bit of end plate we've just seen fly off one of the cars? I think it might be F1 Alex. Oh, it's Mike Stachio's. Yes, an end plate missing on the right-hand side, the front right of that Kick Sauber.
I'm not sure what was going on there. We saw how quickly he was approaching up to some of the cars ahead. I wonder if there's a doubt in his mind wanting to try and unlap himself. I think that could potentially be what was happening, or maybe just didn't appreciate how quick the cars were braking in front of him. And of course, that will be another pit stop required for Mike Stachio as Sasso. Hopefully back in the lobby as well, ready to go racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we now watch Formula Karim make his way around the final corner, still under the safety car, and that will remain the same for the time being. Safso has still got to make his way around this circuit. He's being joined by Mike Stasio. Of course, we just saw the damage flick off the back, or should I say off the front end of his car. As we now watch two cars come into the pits. Adam Sanderson, who currently watching down the straight. We have got in behind Grid Jokes coming into the box. It looked like as well that I thought F1 Alex was joining him as well, but I think it was just Grid Jokes and Mike Stasio obviously coming together. It's quite an interesting combination. Have a look at this. Unbelievable thing from Adam Sanderson's picture in picture here. Absolutely unbelievable. But Sanderson has proven to be a phenomenal driver in his time. Recent results have certainly been stellar. We take a look, obviously, at his more recent string. He's managed to pull out points in both Miami races and Britain as well. 8 points went his way, and I'm sure he's going to be looking for more as well. Just down in P12. He's got a great chance, though, to rise up into that top 10. Points are still on the table for the man, as we all know, to be Devon Butler on the eSports F1 game as they now come around Lakeside Drive. Just trying to get those last, trying to get the heat up into that compound of tyre. Just make sure the grip is at optimal levels ahead of when we go back to racing action as the safety car looks to come in. I'm sure we'll see it come in sooner rather than later. I've got a funny feeling I think it could be this lap, TK.
I think it certainly could be. Just a note on Grid Jokes, why he came into the wall to the pit lane, that was just to serve a 10-second penalty. Made sense, he got it, got in, served it, and still back within the grid, of course, when they all bunch up once again. So very smart race engineering or race strategy preparations there from Grid Jokes. Cleared the penalty, got ready to go again, and essentially found himself a nullification of it as he gained another one for a collision with Scott Taylor there.
Goodness me, under the safety car, obviously a few of the drivers having issues. It turns out the safety car isn't going to come in this lap, so my funny feeling was wrong, and therefore we will continue out on track once more. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we still had quite a few cars disjointed off the back of the pack heading down through towards turn 1 and turn 2. So quite a lengthy safety car procedure. We do appreciate each and every single one of you, though, tuning in across the globe. Thank you to those of you tuning in on Twitch. Please make sure you smash that follow button and stay up to date as well. If you're tuned in on YouTube, keep it coming, folks. Hit that like and a subscribe button as well, if you please. We really do appreciate your support. And if you're tuned in on Twitter, big hello to you as well. Make sure you leave a follow to the channel. Make sure you check out all social media platforms as well for the Creator Series at F1 Creator Series on Twitter, Instagram, and also TikTok, where the reels are being posted too. So, and not to forget as well, you can join the Discord. We do have a Discord server where you can join the fan zone, join the community, get involved with all the conversations that we are having around the championship, around this content series. And it's great to have you all with us too for that. As we now watch Hayden Gullis, who has had one of his better races, it has to say, and I would go as far as to say this is one of Hayden's best races at this point, TK.
Well, he'd like to claim that he does have wins on record, at least within the Creator Series, albeit the record in the archives might have got lost in a fire somewhere. We won't look too far back on that. But yeah, it's looking like some fantastic racing at the moment. He's got an opportunity here. The podium, I think, could certainly be on. He's got some fierce competition in front of him. But if there's one driver that is able to stick a nose down the inside, maybe worm some space through, it's going to be Hayden.
Yeah, I mean, we got to obviously just factor in that obviously whilst he has had, should we say, race wins and obviously pole positions, in previous renditions of the Creator Series, obviously not necessarily under the banner of what it is now. I would say that this is definitely more impressive, I think, than any of those moments, any of those results that he has taken in previous occasions where we witnessed them race. As we now watch the safety car make its way around for yet another occasion, we've got more cars coming into the pits once again. This time it's that guy Vince opting for a stop. So it's just continuing the procedure, the prolonging the safety car staying out here at this point. Zavso, I think, is having some technical issues because he's continuously rejoining the session, leaving the session as well. That Vince rejoining the circuit on fresh medium tyres and still remains ahead of Mike Stasio and Safso, but will have plenty of tyre wear to take him right to the end of this race. It's still Formula Karim, though, at the head of the order, taking the string of cars around as well continuously. We're on lap 41 at this moment. Safso at the very tail end of the field. I just watched in my top left-hand corner there. The lap counter has changed quite abruptly as we look back to Safso, but I think that's got a lot to do with the fact that they are laps down in comparison to the rest of the grid. But yeah, we might be in a situation here. We'll wait and see, folks. We'll let you know if there's any concerns that we should be worried about. But Formula Karim coming around Lakeside Drive and in towards turns 9 and 10. I mean, how do the drivers manage the emotions in a situation like this, TK?
I think you've got to stay in that mindset, don't you? You can't afford to let the slow driving and the probably peaceful nature within the VC let yourself relax too much. If it goes, say in this lap, you've got to be able to snap yourself out of the mindset of just nice and chill. I almost saw Karim drop the car there out of nowhere. We wouldn't have seen that for a few times, but it looks like we potentially might be going for a 25% race at this rate. We've done 75% of it, at least according to most of my maths books at home. But I think Bert Mylander just wants the 25 points all for himself.
Well, I tell you one thing, Scotty Designs, I'm sure as many of you know, makes the meme recaps. I think he's going to have lots to work with. I think off the back of this very race, I shudder to think the number of pages, because he does plan every single video to the point. I have to say, I've been hearing 3 or 4 pages of notes that he puts together to obviously put these meme recaps together, and I have no doubt that this is going to play, I would say, a really prime role in the next one. Bert Mylander seemingly wanting all the attention at the moment at the front of the field ahead of Formula Karim at this stage, but making their way around out of turn 3 through towards turn 4, and now a trip through towards turn 5 as well. The safety car remains out on circuit. Mike Stachio still a whole lap or so down, nearly 2 laps down. In fact, Safso in behind those as well. That was something we saw not too long ago. We're on lap 42 of 58, just to say, folks, as far as the leaders are concerned, as they now come in towards Lakeside Drive. But really appreciate your support and obviously maintaining your time up with us at this point. We could bring in Clipbook Carl for a quick chat. Carl, what's going on your end?
Not a lot, to be honest with you. I mean, what is there to talk about? I mean, other than Karim giving us a piece of finesse and flair for a little bit of action at least. The rest of it remains a procession. What we can have a look at, though, is how Mike Stachio got his wing damage. So, behind safety car, obviously, as we have been for the last 5 years, Grid Joke's weaving about his tyres. There's obviously the concertina as everyone's backing up behind the safety car. You can probably guess what's going to happen. Clonk. Mike Stachio immediately clobbers his front wing into Grid Jokes. That spells the end to the right side of his front wing at least, and a whole lot of pain besides. Speaking of concertinas, that guy Vince, who has taken advantage of this safety car, as it stands, went into the pits. If there is a restart for his sake, I hope he's not 18th, because he did just try and gain an advantage on newer tyres. But behind Grid Jokes again, there's I'm not going to question it personally, but anyway, Grid Jokes just in front. Then there's the big old concertina ahead, with several cars and Vince having to jam on the brakes as quickly as possible to avoid any kind of conundrums and contact. But in theory, touch wood, my desk is made of wood, we're in good stead. Should the safety car come in, then it'll be just a straight sprint fight to the end of this race. No need to pit unless there is another safety car, of course. That could spell a bit of pizzazz on the rest of this race. Like I say, though, that is with the caveat that Bernd Mylander decides to at least give the drivers a bit more screen time.
Well, he's had a busy weekend so far. Thank you very much, Clipbook Carl, for that one. I mean, when we talk about the safety car in Australia, we've already seen it actually bring an end in real life to an F3 race. The sprint, in fact, where Santiago Ramos went on to take victory off the back of it, just managing to hold back Martinius Stenshorner, I should say, with just in behind Roman Belinsky in that first race of the season in Formula 3. So it's played a factor already throughout a race weekend. We've got a feeling, I think Formula Karim has actually mentioned it on his broadcast as far as we've come to be aware of it anyway, that in fact the safety car is in fact bugging out on his screen as well. So I think he's actually put his foot down and he's gone for it here. So I'm not sure what the end game is here right now, TK. Can you enlighten us?
At this present moment in time, no. All I know is Karim is trying to send it, probably drawing back at the pack further out. You can see on the track map, at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, a few cars, I think the top 3 at present, have all managed to pass Burt Mylander and try to create a safety car of their own. That's my only assumption at this moment in time, but I have no idea what they're trying to do. But Karim is just taking an opportunity maybe to get some laps under his foot.
Yeah, obviously, I think just trying to at least get some high-speed action out on track. And you can understand that, obviously, given the fact that they've been under the safety car for such a long time. Hayden Gullis is pretty much going for it as well. Moved up into 4th place at this stage, just in behind the safety car. I think a couple of them have gone for it. Goodness me! That was emphatic. Just letting off. 10-second time penalty. I mean, that is extraordinary. That's a phenomenal way to get yourself disqualified. Hayden Gullis is disqualified as well. Formula Karim, the only car out on track. Just a sheer mess at the moment, guys. We've exposed a flaw in the safety car, unfortunately. So therefore, I would say that this session has indeed been red flagged at this moment in time. So we will keep you up to date as to what the plan is for the rest of tonight's festivities. As to whether we do a 50% race or something a little shorter, we will find out. But nonetheless, you're back with us here in the commentators zone as we look and get set ready for what will ever come towards the end of that one. I think if we really peel back some of the data, Tom, I would say obviously if we want to talk about impressive drivers, Formula Karim, obviously another stellar showing so far, looked good in the race throughout. Tiermet Marduk, expertly rolled out strategy, has essentially brought himself into the fight after 2 stints on intermediate tyres, but finishing on those mediums, but not, unfortunately, putting himself in with a chance of taking the race lead or indeed fighting for it after the safety car comes in, because the safety car decided to stay out. And, there's plenty of other drives to factor in as well. Meraki could have pulled something out, GB. If we do get a restart, there's something to fight for here.
Yeah, absolutely right. There's going to be a different mindset, a different mentality when they come into that situation. Of course, a 25% race, should that be what our drivers get entered into, you're going to have a mandatory pit stop. That's going to be key factor number 1. Everybody would have been expecting to go to the end of mediums. Now they're going to have to use the softs and the mediums. The pit stop's going to cause even more carnage going forward. We might even see a bit of a split strategy. So there's that to try and keep in mind. Obviously, you had a list of drivers that you had up there on some stellar drives this afternoon. I'm going to add another. He led the race for 10 laps, unparalleled by anybody else. Burt Mylander is one of my drivers up there.
Driver of the day for today's event. So we'll roll that on social media later on. Make sure Racing gets that one posted. I mean, let's just talk about Racing Chai for a minute. But, I mean, how worrying is it to have that crash to bring out the safety car in the first place? Because that was quite a strange one, wasn't it? Coming through the final sector, just lost the car altogether, dropped it, and just went into the barrier. Front wing off and all. Not ideal, especially considering what he's capable of around a track like this.
Yeah, it's one of those crashes that sometimes happens, especially on a drying circuit. The curbs quite often are still more slippery than you'd see the racetrack. Maybe got a little bit over-optimistic in terms of how much power he could put through the car before it eventually returns itself and says, no, can't do that. And I think he just found the limit a little bit too quickly in drying conditions. It's unfortunate, but it's part of racing.
It is part of racing, and naturally, mistakes get made. He won't have appreciated it, though, because obviously he is still in this World Championship. Has taken part in all the races for Alpine, has been without Tom for most of them. Obviously today, with a different teammate, he's with Gwatz this time. Gwatz, I would say, has actually shown some good pace as well. I mean, coming in for as a reserve, it's not always easy, especially when you haven't had time in the car. And I'm sure Dan Gilligan would attest to that after what happened to him through the course of the race. But Gwatz was actually posting some fast sectors while the rain was out on track, causing some issues. So credit to him for that. But if we factor in where Racing Chai is in the championship here, TK, 6 at the moment, you can't really afford for too many of these mistakes to start creeping into your season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And if you look at the championship perspective, that's where you've got to take a step back from a situation like this. Yes, you take it with a pinch of salt. You realise what would happen, you analyse it, and then you go into the details. But when you take that step back, you have a look at it from a bigger picture. You go, Meh, probably could have done better there. And actually, you just forget about it. You carry on with the races as you see them, and that's where you can start to score the good points, but also the consistent points, because that's what really matters in a season.
Yeah, he's going to have to work hard for that 9th win. I think there's still to come, obviously, depending on what happens now for the rest of tonight's action. Obviously, we'll keep you updated, as I said, folks. But so some other names to obviously look at. Obviously, some difficulties for Liam Hammond. Like we said, maybe playing on the fact that he hasn't necessarily raced in the Creator Series, that much this season, if any. Obviously, coming in to replace Alex Gillen, which is always going to be some big shoes to fill. Mike Stachio coming in as well. They're just finding their feet out there. Changeable conditions can always cause a stir. We saw Safso even struggling, and he's been in this championship since the very beginning. It just goes to show, really, that anything can happen when the rain falls.
Absolutely. I mean, one word of praise I'll probably say for Mike Stachio. He came in with less than an hour's notice. He hasn't had opportunity to practice the wild card or the track. Everybody else has known the track for weeks, if not months at this point. They've had the ability to go do some driving. So fantastic drive by Mike Stachio, not only to hold his own in the situation, but also not to end up in a wall too dramatically. All the reserves, all the rookies that have come in and taken over the seats, they've done well. They proceeded as they should go through, handled the conditions, the changing conditions really well. And actually, at the end of the day, when they get to that checkered flag, they should give themselves a pat on the back.
Yeah, they absolutely should. And, it's always a challenge when you start dabbling in the wet weather conditions. And that can happen as well at Australia. We've seen it time and time again. The curbs are so flat as well. But at the same time, when you raise just even a little bit, it can unsettle the car. The balance just dissipates. But, extraordinary. Obviously, Meraki still very much part of this fight as well. We saw a great fight between he and Tiamat Marduk. I wouldn't say Meraki is out of this either. Obviously, with Benjamin Daly still very much in this too. There's still very much a chance we could see them go wheel to wheel if we get a restart going. We will, of course, give you confirmation as to what is happening. Just for those of you who are tuned in, or have just tuned in, I should say, we have had essentially a red flag pulled out on the session due to an issue with the safety car remaining out on track. It didn't show any signs of coming in, so we've decided to take things into our own hands, and we are going, I would imagine the plan of action would be another restart, but for a shorter distance for the race. There are rumours that it could be a 35% race, but we'll wait and see. Obviously, we were quite a way through that initial race to begin with. I'm not sure whether it'll be a 50%, probably more likely a 35%, Tom.
Yeah, almost certainly. We were probably over that 50% mark, quite considerably closer to the 35. The question's going to be, where are we taking that restart order from? Because as you said, Vince tried to get that benefit from when he pitted onto the mediums, tried to go for the fresh race tyres. Are we going to take it from where we literally found ourselves, or are we going to take it from when the safety car came out? And that's a big difference for a lot of drivers.
Yeah, well, apparently we could show the starting grid now, I believe. So we are going to move across and take a look at it. Let's run you through how they're going to run, or how they're going to start ahead of this next race restart. 20th place, Mike Stachio lining up alongside PS1 Hagrid. It's Zafso in 19th. P18 for Grid Jokes in the Red Bull, lining up alongside Ferrari's Daniel Gilligan. Moving up into 16th place, Liam Hammond alongside Scott Taylor in the Haas, starting 50. In 14th, F1 Alex alongside Ricky 03, who was in the top 10 fight, but just outside it. Remember, we saw his big fight with Infratic. He starts 13th, though. Adam Sanderson back into P12, where he started the previous start, alongside that guy Vince, now outside the top 10. Remember, of course, making that big strategy jump. He is starting, though, just outside of it, P11. Got Rasin Chai in P10 after his crash brought out the safety car. He'll have a chance to fight, though, alongside teammate Gwatz in P9. In P8, it's Nick Flies in the McLaren. Fabio with a great chance for some big points here tonight. 7th place is where he'll start. 6th place for Hayden Gullis. He is having a monster race so far tonight. He's going to be lining up alongside Meraki in the Red Bull. Last time out, a race winner around this track. GB68 starting 4th, lining up alongside reigning champion Tiamat Marduk and former race winner around this circuit, Tiamat Marduk, starting in 3rd, both of them sharing the 2nd row. And the first row of the grid shared between the two that crashed at Miami across the line. It's Lolinoba in 2nd, and then we're going to be starting with Formula Karim, essentially on pole position, ahead of this restart here for the remainder of the Australian Grand Prix. So here we go. That's the confirmed starting grid. We are going to go back racing, folks, to decide the result of this Australian Grand Prix. We wouldn't have it any other way for you. In my view, the correct decision, Tom, and looking forward to seeing how it pans out. Great opportunity for various cars across the grid. Obviously, bear in mind, fresh tyres for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely the correct decision. We weren't going to go anywhere with that safety car issue as well. And of course, they will be, they'll have fresh set of tyres. They'll be able to use the softs once again. And they will be able to use fresh tyres going forward as well. One thing I think we are going to, maybe talk about at some point as we progress through. I've just seen EA Sports have announced F1 25 whilst we've been live.
Well, it's been long awaited, hasn't it? We've been obviously waiting for the day where it comes out. Many have obviously questioned when it's coming. When is it coming? Obviously, a few of them speculating as to what the date could be. But we can confirm EA Sports F1 25 has been announced on social media, everybody. So make sure you check that out. It is out on social media, Twitter, I'm sure, as well as on Instagram. So make sure you go ahead and, just read all about it, as they say. But, all the drama. It's all happening tonight, TK.
Certainly is. It's been one of those events, one of those days where everything has happened. Apologies, folks at home, if you're watching something has frozen. Just bear with it. There we go. It's all going to catch up with us eventually. OBS having one of its lovely moments. We're back with the starting grid. Just a reminder where Karim and Lonnie Nova start 1 and 2 there this afternoon. And we're back. We're back on the grid.
Well, I tell you what, this is the fun of the Create Series. Don't just get content on the track; you get content in the commentary box as well. We have got a great race, penned in for you. Now, what I want to know, folks at home, is who do you think is going to win? That is the first and foremost question. That is the question we all want to know. Let us know in the live chats. Come on, all of you on Twitch and YouTube, and also on Twitter if you're there as well. Let us know who you think is going to take victory this time. TK, where do you see it going? I know I asked you last time, but now we've got to restart.
I'm going outside man. Hayden Gullis comes from 6th to 1st to win this Grand Prix.
Goodness me. Wow, incredible. Looking forward to seeing whether he can pull that off. It's possible. I tell you what, he has got the minerals, it would seem, given what we saw at the very start of the race from P20, and now he starts P6 on the grid, 14 places up from where he started for the previous start. So let's see where it goes. Obviously, as you can see, dry conditions, no concerns of wet weather, no necessary use of the intermediate tyres here this time. So let's see how this unfolds. It's going to be an exciting thrill ride, that's for sure. Essentially now a sprint race, TK, which offers a little different case of a hurdle, I would say, as opposed to the long race. So where you factor in strategy probably more so than anything else. It's essentially, it's a mystery at this stage.
Certainly is. It's a different mentality going into a sprint race as opposed to the whole 58 laps that we were about to see. Yes, we get the sprint at the end anyway, the natural conclusion to a race and a Grand Prix that we'd have like this. But starting fresh, everybody on the grid together, I think we'll see some cheeky moves into turn 1. Potentially, like we saw in Australia a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be surprised if both Alpines come together at turn 3.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either. Now, Chris Games Real has come in. First time chat as well on Twitch. Big welcome to Chris Games Real. He's gone with Nick Flies ahead of this. You never know, it's possible. Nick Flies could yet fly to the very top. We'll wait and see whether he can do that. See whether he can achieve that, we should say. If you tuned in on Twitch, let us know your comments as well. We will read them out on the broadcast. If you're there on YouTube as well, let us know too who your selections are. Let's have a quick chat. Well, we won't have a quick chat. Looks like we're moving ahead to the game. We're getting set ready to race here at Melbourne around the Albert Park circuit. As I said before, around a large man-made lake that is encroaching into Lakeside Drive, coming around turn 8 in towards turn 9. Opened back on the 20th of November, 1953. And the formation lap is now underway. Formula Karim takes them round. And it looks like there's a bit of a jumbled start here as they look to make their way down through towards turn 1. Tim Marduk and GB already disqualified. That could impact them massively ahead of the restart.
Certainly could do indeed. Cold tyres, especially on a warm track like we find ourselves in at the moment. No rain, of course, being a concern from this point onwards. But Nick Fly is becoming another driver falling victim to whatever shenanigans happen on this formation lap. Karim and Lonnie Noba, I think very sensibly and very correctly looking just to get a boogie on. Infratic is not standing on ceremony as that Ferrari has put himself well and truly into the distance of any danger.
Yeah, absolutely right. You can see there the two dots in the bottom of the track map on your screen. The light, should we say, blue that's appearing. Obviously, the mint colour of the Mercedes on the grid, and they're not alone either, because Lolinoba is going to join them too, so he's just disqualified himself. TMM Marduk joining them, as well as GB. Nick Flies also disqualified too, so that might make things a little tricky. Obviously, let's go to you guys in the chat. Charles 02044 has opted for Benjamin Daly to be a race winner here this time. And we've got further down in the YouTube chat, Bobby Dude has gone for Jake. We got Nuke's Big Bro has gone for Hayden as well, so keep them coming. Scotty Design coming in with Daniel Gilligan for the win, and us commentators will support Dan Gilligan till the end as well, as we watch Meraki come around the final corners, about to take his place on the grid. Formula Karim already making his way around as well, so let's see how we go as they all line up. The trepidation is going to start kicking in any minute now, TK. It's all or nothing.
Certainly is indeed. Remember, folks at home, the race is won in turn 1, lap 1.
Well, clearly, it will be now. We've got 20 laps that are awaiting us. Formula Karim will start on pole position ahead of the restart here. Let's see who comes out on top as we await the lights to go red. And here they come. All 5 lights are indeed lit. And it's pedal to the metal for the second time for the Australian Grand Prix race now, and it's Formula Karim who gets a great start. So does Lolinoba in second place. He might yet lick his lips for a potential overtake on the run down through towards turn 3. He may have struggled during the formation lap, but he's recovered brilliantly, but remains behind Formula Karim for now, with Tim Marduk lining up in third, Infratic and Hayden Gullis going at it over 6th place, and it looks like Infratic has taken it away from Gullis now. So Gullis down in 7th with Quats for company. Nick Flies down in 9th with Rasin Chai still remaining in 10th, with Dakai Vince in 11th. Adam Sanderson up to 12th now as he looks to jump past Ricky 03. So that's Sanderson back in 12th, where he was before, and Quats and Aiden Gullis going wheel to wheel, coming around Lakeside Drive. They touch a little bit, and Gullis has managed to reclaim and hold on to P7, very nearly losing it to Quats, who gets a lovely run down through towards turn 11 here, TK.
This could be a critical corner for the battle. Hayden will try later on the brakes. I don't think he has it in his tank to try and send it. No, he doesn't. He'll allow Quats pass for the time being, but we head on to lap 2 of 20. This is where we're going to have potentially some issues if people haven't unbound their DRS button. Of course, the wildcard is still active, and the opportunity to open that rear wing, if you haven't removed the button, could be pure muscle memory at this point.
Yeah, many of them may opt to turn it off to avoid a potential, shall we say, penalty, or at least a disqualification from the Creator Series team. Remember, the wildcard, no DRS, is able to use big lockup there from Formula Karim as well, coming down in towards turn 3. We're rounding turn 4, obviously not concerned necessarily, but he might be concerned in a few corners' time, because Lolinoba very much embracing his rear wing on that Papaya McLaren right now as they fly up through out of turn 6 and 7, squeezing that throttle as they round turn 8. Lakeside Drive to as now he looks to try and move himself into the wheel tracks. Lolinoba looking for every opportunity to perhaps take P1 away from Formula Karim, the 2 rivals that came together in Miami. They will not go wheel to wheel just yet, but maybe on the escape coming out of turn 10 it could offer something for Lolinoba as they now stretch down through towards turn 11. Will he renege? Will he stay? Defensive minded there from Karim, and very smartly done too. Lolinoba fended off at least for now, but there are still 18 or so laps to go.
Yeah, it's going to feel like a true sprint to the finish, but it's actually kind of a half marathon at the moment for most of our drivers. They've got to be consistent over lap after lap. And of course that pit stop will come in to haunt them at some stage of the Grand Prix. They'll have to do it as the fastest lap gets handed down generations, with GB holding it at the moment, an 18.5.
Yeah, 18.5 on the board for the Aston Martin. So a good lap indeed, still retaining a lot of that pace that we know he has, and going down the inside of TMM Marduk now, coming around turn 3, around turn 4, but not enough to get alongside, far enough to claim the place, and now sits in front of Meraki, licking his wounds just slightly. It was a bold move from GB. Obviously, we know he's quick. He might yet, though, fancy his chances again on the run around Lakeside Drive, and Lolinoba might favour a move for the lead as well, as he's showing all over the back of the McLaren and might yet pull the plug on Karim's lead here in this Australian Grand Prix race, as they now stretch down towards turn 9 and 10. The Papaya McLaren holding firm. Lolinoba hasn't found anything, or at least enough, to make this move happen, but might have a chance down in towards turn 11. Cutting to the inside now, side by side they will go. Tiger line for Lolinova, who goes late on the brakes. Daring manoeuvre indeed from the Haas, but still Karim comes back and sits his car right on the outside of the apex and holds the inside, coming through towards the penultimate corner, but back comes Lolinova. An almighty fight between these two. These rivals from Miami have come to roost again, and they're going to stretch down through towards turn 1, and wheel banging in behind as well, TK.
Yeah, that was GB in bed, trying to find space as GB almost forced off the racetrack there. Lolinova having to go side by side with the Aston Martin at the moment. Tiamat Mardik trying to put pressure on Formula Krim. GB dispatches Lolinova at the moment. Meraki arriving on the scene rather promptly. The Red Bull tries to stick his nose in, but he can't quite do it on this occasion. Lolinova had to go wide to avoid space to allow GB the room that he is required to give. That could give the Red Bull an excuse to send a nose down the inside, but oh my, on that home straight we could have seen both Aston Martin and the Mercedes into the barrier at the same time.
Well, Lolinova, who looked to be the favourite for the race lead, had it briefly, but has now sunk down to 4th place. And now Meraki is looking to sink him down to 5th. On the run now into the very fast turns 9 and 10. Lolinova defiance as he puts down Meraki once more. And the Red Bull sits now in 5th place, remains behind the Haas, but all this allowing Formula Krim to carry onwards now. Tiamat Mardik has got to fight hard to bring that delta downwards because he can't afford to sacrifice the slipstream here now.
He certainly can't at all. How many times have we seen this with Karim? If you allow him that gap in front, he's going to run away as quick as he possibly can. Tiamat Mardik will be doing everything in his power to get in towards the slipstream of the McLaren. GB wants to do the same on Ben, but as they head into turn 1, there's no change in the order at present. GB just didn't quite have the straight line speed to challenge the Australian in towards the first corner. However, the Italian could be going for the Brit as he head into the 3rd corner. Lolinova pretty much nose to gearbox.
Yeah, very much. Very tight. Gap thinner than a fly's eyelash as they come out of turn 4 and around turn 5 once more. They've got turn 6 and 7 to come. Again, a fast-paced section, semi-chicane of sorts, and then a trip through Lakeside Drive, which could offer Lolinova some retribution. After losing the places that he did, he was so close to taking that race lead and holding on to it, but it was eventually snuffed out on the run down through towards turn 1, and now on lap 5 needs to try and recover. It is still Karim flicking the rear out, heading through towards turn 9, and Tiamat Mardik somehow, some way has brought himself back to within 6/10, and Infratic off onto the gravel and has forfeited no end of places. I think he's lost about 5 on the run down through towards turn 11. It's 3 wide almost now between that guy Vince and Nick Flies. Hayden Gullis trying to break them all down, but it's that guy Vince up into P7 and Nick Flies has flown up into P8.
Fabio got very lucky there, wide through the 10th corner, off in towards the gravel track. We quite often see cars heading towards the barrier at a rapid rate of knots. He was able to recover the car, get going again, but I think certainly he'll need clean trousers at the end of the race.
Yeah, he certainly will after that one. It got very tight. There's been plenty of moments already in this restart that is certainly deserving the case for cleaner trousers, if possible. Formula Karim, we were mentioning that he was very nearly coasting outwards beyond a second. That could have become an unassailable lead. Well, he sacrificed all of that. Tiamat Mardik now within 0.5 of a second. We are going to see a straight fight between 2 of the top 3 in the championship coming into this Australian race, as we now watch them head out of Lakeside Drive in towards the fast left and right at turns 9 and 10 very shortly. Formula Karim might be well on the brink. Lap 6 of 20, still plenty of laps to run, but Tiamat Mardik is going to try and ensure that Karim does not escape, does not get away on the run down through towards turn 11 now, and they remain glued together. GP in 3rd, Lolinova in 4th as well. We've got all of the top 6 all within range of each other. They will all have slipstream. The car that is, of course, sacrificing all of that is that guy Vince, who is nearly 2 seconds. He was 2 seconds. He's currently 1.6 seconds behind. But crucially enough, he's over a second ahead of Nick Flies, who has stopped into pit, and he's not alone. Infratic has come in as well.
Yeah, this is where ERS management will become a second advantage. You'll have to try and push while your battery's full. You'll try and recharge when you're in a train like this. As we watch aboard with Meraki, he's on the back, he can recharge. Afford to wait a few moments, maybe see if a car is going to go longer on the softer tyre, and then start to push, then start to strike.
Yeah, he certainly can. Lap 7 of 20. Now I wonder how long those on the soft tyres choose to stay out for. Obviously, we've seen a couple box now already. Mike Stachio in the pits now this time too. He's opted for a set of the medium tyres. So let's await and see what rumbles here so far. Coming out of lap 7, very soon to begin lap 8. Does anyone opt for the box here and now? Remember, of course, on medium tyres, they will be able to run that little bit longer. It's a good race tyre as well. Obviously opting for the softs to try and plug for that track position. Still Karim, though, who holds the optimal track position so far. Tiermet Marduk making sure, though, that he does not escape, remaining within half a second. It's oh so personal, oh so vibrant. It is, of course, a home race for Benjamin Daly, and at the same time could be a championship defining one as well, as in comes Karim in for his pit stop, and he's not alone because Lolinova has come in as well.
Certainly has indeed. 2 front runners in towards the box, both on towards the medium tyres, trying the undercut, because we know how powerful that can be in the course of this race. We know how powerful it's been over the course of the seasons gone by, and I wouldn't be surprised if Karim has played this absolutely correctly here.
Yeah, at the moment, fastest driver out on track is GB, though cars now making their way back out onto the track. Formula Karim, your net leader as it stands on fresh medium tyres in 9th spot, but it all depends on how those at the very top manage the rest of their race. Tiermet Marduk, will he come in? Will he respond to the change that Formula Karim has made? Opt for a fresher set of medium tyres. GB now rounding Lakeside Drive, a portion of circuit now they're approaching where both of these cars came together and crashed in seasons prior, but this time no such concerns, and Tiermet Marduk getting the slipstream on the back of GB as he takes the lead of the race on the run down through towards turn 11. They'll stay bound together as they now look ahead to lap 9 of 20, but like I said, big question, do they respond to, of course, the pit stop that was made by Karim here and now? Do we see GB come in? Yes, we do, and a yellow flag is out in Sector 3, full safety car. Oh my goodness.
Well, this is absolutely timed to perfection for the drivers that have just come into the pit lane. Karim will be absolutely fuming in that cockpit at the moment. He would have been hoping and praying that that didn't cause a safety car. The yellow flag remained just that, a yellow flag, and I don't think he's going to be able to pip out drivers behind him. You look at that, the distance that he's back further behind. He tries to pip some of them out in towards turn number 1. I think he might pip out Meraki, storming around the outside. Apologies of actually Razin Chai, that was, for the Alpine. But everybody else will have the advantage after this safety car period.
That is 2 fortuitous safety cars for Benjamin Daly in one evening in 2 different sessions that we have had tonight as well. I must say, what a barnstormer we have had this evening. We've had drama in its droves for various reasons, folks at home. What a moment. Meraki leads this race, but albeit it's on 8-lap-old soft tyres. That guy Vince, Scott Taylor, all are on older tyres, and of course are still yet to box as well, so they're going to get hurt by this majorly. GB, of course, sat behind them, is in the optimal spot, but joined by Tiermet Marduk. Formula Karim still very much in this, has already boxed, but this is a disaster for Meraki, that guy Vincent Scott Taylor, who are going to fall by the wayside now, given the fact that the safety car came out when it did. Now, let's move across. Is Clipboard Carl there? We'll head across to him now.
Oh, yes, I am here, ladies and gentlemen. So, whilst we're taking a little bit of a breather, by the way, what timing for the safety car for the likes of GB and Tiermet Marduk. But outside of that, this is just a demonstration of how quickly the pendulum can shift. You think you've got the upper hand, then suddenly it is all slapped into insignificance. So Lolinova down the inside on lap number 3. Great traction around the outside. Once again, we've seen it before. We see it here as well. Plenty of racing room and respect left by Formula Karim. Lolinova still holding it round the outside, valiantly fighting all the way through, thinks he has the ascendancy, but of course has been pinched in, has that tighter line, uses overtake a little bit, but gets caught out, switches down into hot lap, and that is how crucial battery usage turns out to be, as through goes Karim. Tiermet Marduk spots the advantage, contact made, it all almost gets extremely grisly, no damage and no other, well, conundrums posed towards the Haas driver. GB down the inside. That's how quickly it can turn from optimism to pure pessimism. Then, the question was, well, we saw what happened with Fabio and that guy Vince. As you can see, that was how it ended for Fabio. But leaves some space, goes to turn into the inside, just probably misjudges it a tiny bit early. makes that contact, as a result, spat out into the sandbox. From Vince's perspective, that almost all but confirms that, as they're side by side on the run down in towards the chicane. Still side by side, plenty of space. Now we see Fabio turn in to try and take the apex. That guy Vince, he can't move, he's not going to go invisible. As a result, that causes the contact, Fabio into the gravel trap, and it's double disaster for the Scuderia, because Dan Gilligan had the spin. That was why the safety car came out at the end of that chicane.
There we are. Thank you very much, Carl, for that drama across the board, folks. Just witnessing there, obviously, Infratic suffering after making, I think, a little bit of an error in judgment, cutting across the front of that guy Vince's Aston Martin. So, obviously, he had to go off onto the gravel to try and recover. But what this has left us with now is GB and Tiamat Marduk at the top of the shop. They are leading this race, and as a result of that safety car, we mentioned how damaging it would be for Meraki, Scott Taylor, and also further back, Dakai Vince and Quats themselves. They're all now sank to that rear end. They were right at the top, remember, fighting for the top points, but now the safety car has come in. It's all on GB to get this restart underway. We have had the pit stop phase. It's now a 10-lap fight right to the end, and look at the gap now as GB puts pedal to the metal for the third time in this race now, as we watch them sprint down through towards turn 1. It's GB with an advantage. Formula Karim getting a lovely restart as well on the tail of Tiamat Marduk as they now stretch down through towards turn 3 again this time, but no moves could be made. GB holding his own. It's Tiamat Marduk still in second, Karim in third, and Rasin Chai down in fourth. Infratic has jumped Liam Hammond for that 9th place, and Meraki has done the same and moved up to 10th.
Yeah, Liam Hammond, as you mentioned, having connection issues. His AI has put on hard tyres, which will be a double case of bad to worse for him this afternoon. Not only is he going to drop positions, he'll have to pit off them as soon as he physically is able. Karim, though, pushing Tiamat Marduk to the absolute limit as we head in towards turn 9 and 10. Ben pushing that McLaren as much as he possibly could to the wall. Fortunately, both of them come out on top, and Karim resurges his attack.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, he can't let the McLaren go. Needs to try and focus his efforts on GB, but Karim pushing him into a position where he had no choice but to give way the place. And now it's Karim in second, chasing on that Aston Martin rear wing of GB, who is looking for a third win of his season so far, and this could very easily push him ever closer into championship contention. But even so, it could push Karim into championship contention. The top 3, even the top 4, make that the top 5, all championship contenders here at this point in the EA Sports F1 Creators Series. Lolin Ober also looking for another race win as they peel off down through towards turn 3, and Rasin Chai around the outside of Tiamat Marduk might get the run heading through towards turn 4. They go wheel to wheel, they remain together, but Tiamat Marduk fighting back, and through goes Lolin Ober. Goodness me, on the run in towards turns 5 and 6, now out of turn 7. Wow, what a move there from Lolin Ober. Silences Rasin Chai in an instant, but back comes Chai now here, TK.
There he is, trying to another move in towards 9 and 10. He's boxed in. Lolin Ober on his outside, Ben to his inside line. Surely not 2x2 through 9 and 10. Chai has to back out. Lolin Ober gets the position. Razin very sensibly backs out of that move. Didn't particularly want to recreate the crash between Ben and GB that we saw seasons gone by. And Lolin Ober still on the attack of Tiamat Marduk, who's dropped considerably off the back of Formula Karim here. But GB leads the race as well.
It is extraordinary. GB has held his own at the very top. 3/10 now between Karim and the Aston Martin now. And it looks like GB could yet be a sitting duck on the way down through towards turn 1, and then later on the way out of turn 2 in towards turn 3. GB now just trying to hold his own in the face of this papaya onslaught as he now sprints down through towards this next right-hander. Does enough to regain or retain anyway this P1 position in what could translate to a victory come the next 7 laps as we watch them pirouette coming out of turn 5 in towards turn 6 as well. In the background, Tiamat Marduk 6/10 away. It was a second. He's managed to close it right back up, but Karim is going to have a shot here at the race lead coming in towards turns 9 and 10.
Yeah, inside line again for Karim, nice and sensible. Nothing he has to try and disrupt anybody else's race. GB will sit in behind, except the slipstream as they head through these extremely fast left-right chicane. Razin Chai getting through, but Tiamat Marduk, 3-second penalty for corner cutting.
And that, by all intents and purposes, takes him out of the race win equation, I would say, right now. And also on top of that, maybe even the podium equation, because Lolinoba is 3/10 behind him, and Rasin Chai also sitting there and waiting as well. There is a plethora of cars with an opportunity, but a costly mistake for Benjamin Daly that could yet drift him into obscurity further down into this top 10, despite taking this fastest lap of the race so far as well. It's Karim in front, GB in second, TMM Marduk in behind them right now as well. Still no changes in this top 3 now as we begin lap 14. GB, of course, reneging the lap prior, and Karim will take them round as they venture around turn 4.
Certainly will do indeed. Karim still leads from GB Team and Marduk, of course. At present, according to my calculations, will drop down to about P6 or P7 with that 3-second penalty applied at the end of this race. But the battle at the moment up the front is so fierce. Nobody knows which way this is going to go. I'm sure there's fantastic battles going on further back as well, as we ride on board with Rasin Chai once again in towards turn 9 and 10. Previously, where he tried to go wheel to wheel, Lolinoba backed out because he didn't want to risk it. With so few laps left in this Grand Prix, I think he's going to try and run here in towards turn number 11. No, he backs out, waits sensibly once again, but he's running out of laps if he wants to try something. His teammate Guat thought about a move on Infratic though. Fabio getting slightly caught out with the inside line. The Alpine runs wide and slots back in behind again.
This field is rife with opportunity. Definite opportunity for every single driver across this grid, should they be close enough to points. Some of them close enough for podiums. Podiums that they wouldn't have necessarily expected coming out of the last race, but coming into a fresh restart, especially after considering the issues under the safety car for many of the drivers. They're all fighting tooth and nail for points out there. Every single point counts in terms of this championship, and Formula Karim knows that better than anybody. He came into this round, as we said, third in the championship, twice the race winner after last winning at Monte Carlo, taking the Monaco Grand Prix, and prior to that, a winner back in Imola during the Italian job double header. As we now watch them stretch round through towards, out of turn 8, through towards Lakeside Drive in sector 2. We've got Lolinoba closing up now to TMM Marduk in a battle for the podium places, but coming to join them is Rasin Chai, who squeezes around the outside, coming through towards turns 9 and 10. Brilliant from Rasin Chai, and now he has got TMM Marduk next on his list.
Beautiful move from Chai. Thought about a move, saw what he did wrong the time before. The inside wasn't the play for him. He chose the outside instead, forced the hand of Lolinoba, and that's what got him the place nice and easily done. He has now Team Marduk in front of him, as he previously said. With that penalty in hand, GB will battle Karim in towards the first corner. I wouldn't be surprised if we see send from Rasin Chai here. He looks close enough to be able to do so. GB's happy to sit in behind. More yellow flags further back, with F1 Alex taking a bit of a spin at the penultimate corner.
Well, GB needs this race. He's in with an opportunity to take points that could very easily bring him closer in touching distance of a championship crown. He is looking for championship glory. He knows by rights he should have it as well. He has won the Constructors' Championship twice running, as we watch Meraki in a very big fight with Zapso as well over 9th place, but has lost out. Can't quite rise above that 10th spot, as now Zapso looks to gain as well. He is all over the back of Nick Flies, but can't quite clip his wings or gain a place on the back of that Papaya McLaren. But Rasin Chai might gain a place, though. He is on the tail of Tiamat Marduk.
Maybe he thought about a move 2 laps in a row, but I think he's just backed out, maybe waited to be a little bit closer to the Australian that stands in front of him. Now he thinks about a move. He's going to go later on the brakes, force the hand of the Australian. There's contact between the 2 cars. They've backed out once again, though, as Chai re-evaluates his options. He's only got 4 laps to go. If he wants to make a move, he knows he's going to get the position at the checkered flag anyway. Maybe he feels he still has a chance to get GB and Karim up ahead.
Yeah, and Hayden Gullis also on for a season's best performance as well. Down in 7th, could yet get Ricky 03 as Adam Sanderson moves back up into P12, where he started at the very restart of this race right now. 3 laps or so to go, 4 if you're picky, as we watch them head down in towards turn 3. It is Formula Karim at the front of the order. He's trying to break away from the Aston Martin of GB, trying to make assurances for himself that he can take a 3rd race win this campaign in what will catapult him into this fight with Tiamat Marduk over the championship, and especially given the nature of the penalty, it's going to cost Tiamat Marduk so much in this championship fight, because it will levy Karim closer and closer to the Aussies' tail in this championship now. As we watch them come through towards turns 9 and 10 again, Rasin Chai looking for a huge exit for a run down through towards turn 11. We have got also Meraki and Hayden Gullis coming together as well. And Meraki has put down Gullis and moved up into 7th. And he's got Ricky right in front of him. But back comes Gullis on the escape in towards turn 11. And the Williams is defiant.
Williams and Hayden Gullis looking absolutely incredible in this race at the moment. Ricky and Gullis 6th and 7th respectively on the grid. You can see how well they're working together to hold off the cars that stand behind them. Gullis has had his Weetabix this morning.
He certainly has. He has brought his very best to the forefront, looking and chasing for big points for the Williams team. And Williams being 6th and 7th, this is a huge result for them right now. As we watch GB come down in towards turn 3 now. Yellow flag at this stage as well. No, Quats is out. Goodness me, that is a huge crash on the outset of turn 2. And he's not alone. It's Hayden Gullis. We were bigging him up, certainly bigging him up after a stellar drive. And now he is dropped down to 14th. What could have been heroic performance has turned to misery for the Giraffe.
That is an interesting crash. I saw Hayden drop a considerable number of positions first, one after another and after another, as Team Marduk here swoops past GB on track. It's not going to matter much. He will drop down a position when the penalty becomes applied. GB still alongside in towards turn number 12, the right-hander, as Rasin Chai thinks about a move, but can't quite on this occasion. But I think Gwat's going back to that earlier incident. I think Gwat's just got caught up with a Hayden spin.
I think he did. Well, he was caught very much in it. We saw the impact, didn't we? The big spin, the Alpine was totally thrown up into the air. We've already lost F1 Alex, but we've lost 2 cars now. But the battle for the lead is still very much on. We're on the penultimate lap of the race, and Formula Karim leads the way, but GB is hugging that rear wing on the McLaren. Tim Marduk still in this fight, but bear in mind 3 seconds of time penalties will certainly catapult him well outside of the lead battle, and on top of that the podium as well. As we watch them come through the first sector, Team Marduk still in 3rd, Formula Karim still trying to build that gap, and Lolinoba trying to catch them as well. He's 1.2 seconds outside the mark. If he can get close enough, he can give himself every chance in an effort to try in his own mind to take a podium of his own. It's Karim now here on lap 19, coming through Lakeside Drive again. It's Rasin Chai who pops up ahead of Tiamat Marduk now and puts the Alpine right and fully into P3, but still P2, maybe even P1 can be an offer for the Alpine now as they stretch down through towards turn 11. Here comes GB on the run in towards Formula Karim, and switch back to the outside. Defensive from Karim, who retains that race lead. Great defensive effort. Are you still there, TK?
I certainly am indeed. Beautiful moves from all of our drivers at the moment. GB couldn't quite find a way through. Look at how close all the cars are as we parade around onto the final lap. Finally, we've got to this moment, a conclusion to this Grand Prix. Is it going to be Karim? Is it going to be GB? Is it going to be Rasin Chai, who's going to see victory in Australia? George, take us through this final lap of racing.
It's going to be extraordinary. We have got 5 cars all within a second. Currently now of our race leader, Formula Karim. It's 9 tenths for Lolinoba, who sat in 5th place right now and working so hard to bring himself into the equation for another race victory here this time in the F1 Creator Series. Last time a winner was Lolinoba back at Miami in race 1 as he and Karim crossed the line together in truly catastrophic fashion that left both cars stranded coming across the line, but they still retain their places. But now as they drive and head and sprint through towards turns 9 and 10, GB going for the unthinkable, going for the race lead and potential victory, loses out a lot of traction, sacrifices so much momentum, and here comes Rasin now on the run down towards turn 11. They go wheel to wheel, and now Karim holding his own. He will retain the race lead, but the P2 battle is on, and GB with a nose in front is going to try and hang on here. Rasin up is inside. My goodness, and now the round turn, the final corner, Formula Karim will go on to a 3rd race victory this season. It's the Australian Grand Prix going Karim's way. The man who came in 3rd in the championship, he is a victor once more, and GB retains P2 ahead of Rasin Chai in P3. My goodness me, TK.
I'll probably talk for a little bit here because I'll give you a voice arrest. We can all hear it. They're going on. But the incredibly close fight between Razin and GB up towards the line, 16 thousandths of a second, all that separated our two podium sitters. Team Mardik only dropping down to P5 there after that 3-second penalty became applied. Hayden Gullis still comes home to P15, albeit after that crash, which saw Watts taking no further part in this race as well. But what a Grand Prix we've just seen. Daniel Gilligan, one of our own, does finish off the race, albeit with 12 seconds of penalties to his name. He's surely going to do donuts. I thought he was going to do donuts on the grid for us for a second. No, he's just going to crawl across the line. Nope, he's going to stop on the line because he knows exactly what he's doing right now. There we go. Conclusion to our Grand Prix after all. But Karim, at the final time of asking, pulls off a worldy defence to hold off the cars behind and get victory in Australia.
That was a clinical finish from Karim. GB had his chance. You can argue that he probably should have been a little more patient, probably should have waited after turn 10 to get the move done. But nonetheless, Karim will do the dancing because he did the talking. Victor here in Australia and a third race win of the campaign. Last to Victor, as we said before, back at Monaco, taking the intermediates, fastest time as well. And now he's gone from lights to flag. The first time that we've seen that since Zapso in season 1. It's been replicated now by the McLaren of Formula Karim. What a result. Here is your full classification. It's Formula Karim, your race winner, and GB in second place. Rasin Chai in third, Lolin Ober in fourth, Tiamat Mardik in fifth, Meraki in sixth, Infratix seventh, Ricky O3 in eighth, Adam Sanderson ninth, Nick Flies in 10th, with Zafso in 11th, that guy Vince in 12th, Grid Jokes in 13th, Liam Hammond in 14th as well. And we'll run off the others. Hayden Gullis finishing in 15th place. And of course, we had Mike Stasio down in 16th, Scott Taylor down in 17th, Dan Gilligan, the last across the line. And we lost Gwatz and F1 Alex earlier in the session. Drama throughout. What a race. It truly had everything, didn't it, folks? My goodness me. The madness is over. Oh, TK. I mean, where do we start with this? I mean, first and foremost, we had a hectic first start for starters, and then of course it led to the safety car, which obviously led to the restart. We had another safety car mid-session that upset the balance for a few drivers out there, obviously Meraki being one of them. I mean, how do we summarize a race like that?
I think there's only one word that I can use to describe that, and if I was Elmo right now, my hands would be in the air, fire behind me, because it's chaos.
I mean, I'm having to wave this at me right now. It's a warm one. It's getting warm in this office right now. It's warm in the studio. Honestly, you might tell the voice has taken a hammering, everyone. Extraordinary. I think we do have interviews coming up, by the way, very shortly as well, folks. But we'll head across to Clipbook Carl. Carl, can you summarize? Can you make sense of any of this?
Oh, just give me a minute, man. I need an ice pack. That was ridiculous. That last lap was absolute chills down the spine and everything. But very clever play from every single one of the drivers, and let me explain why. Formula Karim coming up to the fast right-hander. Now, he knows he's got a corner cutting and track extension token left. So he uses that to his advantage, extends the track limit, optimizes the exit as much as possible. Extremely clever thinking from Formula Karim in a position to win this race. Just has this chicane to think about, deploying the overtake now all the way through. Thought he had a chance to save the battery. GB to the inside. Great space and racing room left between the two of them. Karim, as a result, manages to fend off the assault from GB and the Aston Martin. I can hardly articulate sentences together, but GB compromised exit as a result. So look at who enters the fray. Mr. Razin Chai spots blood in the water like a hungry shark, gets the exit, switches one to the outside, thinks about switching to the inside. GB then cuts across, slight contact made. Razin uses the marvellous momentum on the outside, just holds it. We saw it so many times at this right-angled right-hander, and still they remain side by side. It gives Karim the chance, overcooks it on the brakes just to try and get a nose ahead. GB has the exit, but planting on the overtake button. GB with no battery left. It's just the run to the line. 16 thousandths, all that separates Razin from a potential P2. In the end, has to dwell on the podium regardless. But even so, what racing and respect from all the drivers. I mean, credit where credit is due. on the edge of our seats the entire way through, that whole last lap.
Absolutely unbelievable, Carl. I mean, I'm still speechless. I mean, I think for 1 minute, I mean, listen, I mean, that's just, I don't know how to summarize this. I think we do have to clear up a few things, though, before we go into our next segment. It's been brought to our attention that F1 25, EA Sports F1 25, has not actually been announced. It turns out it was a prank pulled out by the one and the only Grid Jokes. I mean, they don't call him Grid Jokes for no reason, really, I suppose, Tom.
No, they don't. And I'll be honest, I got overexcited. I saw he put a YouTube link in our cooldown room with all the drivers. Everything looked vaguely legit. It had the correct sponsors, the correct drivers. And then I go to click the video when we're doing all the cooldown room whilst Carl's running through our lovely Fitbit corner. And I get hit with Rick Astley. And I think you know the rest.
Never going to give you up, TK. But yeah, no, honestly, it's... unbelievable. No, honestly, folks at home, this has been one of those streams, one of those days. You know, we've had everything thrown at us. I mean, I thought, why not? Let's just hammer that final lap out. I mean, listen. In terms of the championship, this has brought an interesting complexion, though, because Formula Karim now, off the back of this, has brought himself closer in terms of the championship fight. I think we'll have a look at the standings a little bit later, obviously. But, you know, that's a third win this season. You know, he's a serious player, Carl.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think, in a way, that will feel right for him because he dominated the wet weather conditions, looked set to have the ascendancy in that first race until Bernd Mailander inevitably wanted some screen time. But he controlled it. He knew exactly what he needed to do, used a bit of that racing instinct on the last lap, and that's what awarded him the race win today. So, there you go. Third win for the season, looking for even more, and he's just putting on the pressure on Tiamat Marduk, just a little bit.
Well, I can tell you the exciting news is they're all waiting for an interview in the waiting room. We will bring in Rasin Chai, our P3 sitter, managing to get back on the podium. Be careful what you say, Rasin. You are live on air on the EA Sports F1 Creator Series. That's a £50 fine for that. Thank you very much. No, joking. No. Incredible race. I say incredible. Speechless, I think, is probably more the phrase. I'm not sure what to use, to be honest. Yeah, we had everything. Confusing moments, safety cars, weather changes, restarts, red flags, you name it, we've had it all. I mean, can you summarize that in a nice nutshell for us? A good result for you, though, P3.
Yeah, I mean, to summarize all of the events that happened today is quite difficult. There isn't a word to summarize that. I mean, obviously, I was the one who caused the safety car, so
yeah,
you know, I guess I'm partly to blame for the bugging out. But
yep.
No, I mean, you know,
we all blame you.
Obviously, yeah, as per usual. On the final race there, the 35. No, it went really well. I mean, I didn't have the best of starts in the race, so it was difficult to get past. But yeah, the safety car came out. Obviously, it helped. Obviously, I caught up to the guys. So started P10. To finish P3, I was quite happy with. Do I think I could have got more? Yes. I think I had the pace today, and Barry was on notch. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy just getting past people today. Yeah, I mean, it's tough racing, I guess, from everybody today. So you know, you can't expect an easy pass. But yeah, I mean, hopefully going into the next few rounds we could get a bit more tidier bits of racing. But hey, it was good enough today still.
It was very good today, I have to say. And there was, obviously, despite the challenges we had during the course of the show and during the course of the race, it obviously turned out that we had some good races, especially towards the end when we were allowed to sort of race 20 laps on dry tyres. But I mean, there was a moment there in that final restart where, of course, we had the safety car come out. A couple of drivers were actually had their strategies were null and void afterwards. Meraki obviously had already passed the pit lane. Did you breathe a sigh of relief that you didn't get caught up in any of that nonsense? Because that would effectively have cost you any sort of podium.
Yeah, I mean, I was always planning on boxing a lap because I knew Karim and obviously Lolly Nova were good at undercut last lap. As much as a tyre deficit will help, but with no DRS, it's not easy to catch back up. So I knew how to react that lap. Luckily, the safety car came out in perfect time, and I was surprised Jake didn't box that lap either because I know his tyres were gone and he was dropping away from me, so I expected him to follow through. But yeah, unfortunately for him, he obviously got caught by the safety car, which obviously ruined his race effectively, I guess, in the end with the strategy. I don't know where he finished in the end, but you know, it's a bit unfortunate on his side.
Yeah, I mean, that's every spot on the podium you've managed to achieve now, bar the top. So far this season,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you know you've only got one place to go now, and if you can be as fast as Benjamin Daly one day, maybe you'll get.
Oh,
no, if you'll get.
okay.
Yeah. No, just honestly, I mean, you're in this championship fight now. Obviously, the results have been fairly good. Maybe not the best. I mean, we have seen better from you. Obviously, your championship winning year would have been better, going back to season 5, in fact. But looking forward, what can you take in terms of positives? Is there anything in particular, one certain round that you can think of that is going to work for you?
I mean, I know we've got China and Japan next up, which, to be honest, are not good tracks for me. So obviously, depending on the wildcard, to see how it affects it, but those are going to be damage limitations. I don't know how far I'm behind in the standings, but yeah, Bahrain is the one I'm looking forward to. I think Bahrain is a track that may have an advantage on others. It's a track I always struggled with. That is a hope. It's a doubleheader as well, so big points on offer. I've had a doubleheader curse since the beginning's been introduced. At the moment, I've not scored well on any of them. This season, I've been either not scoring amazingly, either, as you pointed out. 3 podiums, but my other results don't replicate it. Yeah, I've been a fortune of bad luck, I think, this season. But I took a different approach this today. Being a bit more aggressive, getting the move done. Don't sit in the midfield of, P4, P5 position, because you're at risk of something happening in front or behind you. So be a bit more assertive with moves, which I tried to do, obviously, today. So going forward, that is the mentality I'm approaching. I'm just going to be a bit more assertive with my moves. And yeah, just try to get myself to the front and try and make it work from there.
Yeah, well, you've gone close a few times now, so we wish you all the very best. Best of luck come China, of course, in a week's time or so, I believe. And, of course, like you say, sprint race weekend as well. So lots to look forward to.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much.
This one, well done, Razin. P3 after that one, of course, managed to pull out at least something towards that bitter end. It could have been P2, could have been P1 as well. Next on our list is GB, who's going to come in and join us. A man who should probably really have been our victor really towards the end. Made, in my opinion, GB, a crucial error in attempting the overtake at turn 9 instead of perhaps turn 11. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, that's fair. I think definitely kicking myself on it for sure. I think Karim was very, very smart and banked one of his free warnings on the right-hander before the first, long DRS straight before that chicane. So he gained a couple tenths out of there. I went quite cautious. As soon as I did it, I was like, what have I done? I should have done the same thing. I only had one warning, so there was, we could take risks. If I'd have done that, I think it would have been fine because we went into the chicane side by side. So, but yeah, don't disagree with that. I think for sure, in hindsight, probably could have slotted in and looked at the move down into the right-hander. And obviously, all of that meant that I was really on the back foot against Razin, who just had more battery from me and Karim fighting. So yeah, disappointed. But to be honest, bit of perspective as well in race 1 and how it all unfolded. I'm happy with a P2 Interspol. It's still been a good race weekend.
Yeah, it's been very good. And in fact, that was your 7th podium this season. So you're one of the more consistently scoring podium sitters this season, really, if we look at it. Obviously, if we take some of the others outside, I would say probably more so than most, if not the most. I mean, looking ahead, there is still some big races to come. I know you mentioned that there might be some difficulties later on in the calendar because you might be missing a couple of dates. Does that really place impetus on China, for example, for the sprint, and also at the same time Japan afterwards? Are the next few races clinical?
I guess so, yeah, you could say that. China as well, historically, has been a very good track for me, results-wise, and I guess pace-wise. I know Karim's quick there. I think last time round, me and him were kind of controlling the race up front until a safety car. So I hope I'll be competitive next weekend. Japan, I've got no idea. And of course, as you guys know, there's wildcards to shake things up. So but who knows? Yes, you're right. I am missing a race. I'm pretty certain I'm missing the finale. I don't think there's anything I can do about that. So yeah, that definitely does kind of, I suppose, if you want to look at it from a championship perspective, means that I need to open up a lead if I'm going to have any chance of winning it at the end. So, yeah. But I mean, still focusing one race at a time. Still very good result. And I think good team points as well. I think Vince finished down on P12, but I think Aston still were nearly pushing 25, 30 points. So not too bad.
No, it's pretty good. I mean, Vince has had a good run this season of scoring rounds. He's actually done quite well. And obviously, there's still potential for Aston Martin to go 3 in a row for the team's championship. So we'll wait and see how that unfolds. Obviously, Mercedes performing well as well. Might be a little bit tougher this season, but we'll see how that goes. Obviously, today there was a mishmash of situations. Obviously, we had the red flag essentially towards the end of the session. Strategy was thrown out the window with the changeable wet weather conditions. No one knew what lap to box on. Some went a little later than others. Some went really early to the detriment of themselves. Was it a case of just you managed it as you went? Did you have a strategy in mind going through the course of the race?
I would have loved to have seen, on the second race, I would have loved to have seen, if there was no safety car, how that would have played out, because don't underestimate tyre wear, even on mediums at Australia. It's significant. We ended the race with like 55%. So even though Karim and I think Lolly and whoever else boxed the lap before myself and Ben, even though they would have got a monumental undercut, I still think we would have had a good pace advantage to the end. So it would have been interesting working with Ben and seeing how that would have unfolded. But yeah, it was a real shame about the first race. I'm not going to lie. I mean, obviously, no one's fault. No one's to blame for that. Just an unfortunate game issue. But I think that would have been really fun to see how that would have played out with, 19, 20 laps on the mediums. That would have been really cool. But yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone's been treated to some good racing today. Because again, I say it most weeks. I feel like I'm repeating myself each week. But again, credit to the guys at the front, because I thought the racing at the end was great. It was on the limit. It was wheel banging, but no one was being run off into the walls or anything. So it's a W in my book.
Well, I nearly lost my voice to the end anyway. So nice. Yeah, it was good. But yeah, we wish you all the very best, GB. Next up, China. Obviously, more chances for points, more chances for podiums, maybe even a chance for a victory. We'll wait and see. Wish you the very best.
Cheers, guys. See you next weekend.
Thank you. All the best. GB68, everybody. Goodness me. Obviously, was on touching distance and agrees with me as well. Obviously, we were talking, TK, about the risk of going for that move around turn 9, turn 10. I think he made an error.
Absolutely. Error in not waiting for that extra corner, but also I think where we understood, and we spoke earlier in the stream about having to take those corners with as much straight line speed as you can and not affording to bank that penalty warning. That combination of things I think came together to not afford him the win this afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can talk to Formula Karim now, who is, of course, getting set ready for an interview. Race winner now as well. 14 points now behind Tiamat Marduk. The gap has shrunk after Benjamin Daly had a penalty and he's dropped further down the order, did not score enough points. Karim's back, 3 times a race winner. It's a triple dream this season for Formula Karim. Karim, thank you for joining us. You must be absolutely thrilled, despite all the carnage that kind of festered after all that.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little bit relieved. After the restart, I was a little bit shook. You know, a 35% race. We're not used to the tyre wear. We have to make another pit stop. It's, anything can go wrong in those moments, and it has done in the past. But thankfully this time, I think I put in enough work to make it work. And yeah, I'm very happy to get P1.
And that is the first lights to flag victory we've had at Australia in the Creator Series since SAFSO in Season 1. So that's quite a stat to have to your name as well. And I just said as well, obviously to the audience, the viewers tuning in, 14 points now between yourself and Tiamat Marduk. The gap has come down. That must give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to do. After last week, I had some battles with GB, and that let, Ben stay in front on his worn softs. Let him get the race win in the end, and I only got P4. Plus styrophobia, the gap was quite big. So coming into this weekend, of course I'm going to try win, which is, obviously what I did. But my eye is on the championship now, being so many races into the season. So I was thinking, we just need to beat Ben. And that's what we did. Yeah, he had good pace. Everyone had good pace. The racing was really interesting. Honestly, I don't know how you guys felt, like if there were more overtakes or less. But I think it was a success. I really enjoyed the track position meaning more. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was going to ask you your opinion on that, because with the lack of DRS, it was interesting to watch you manage your race, because you were able to sprint out and in some cases take a 4-second advantage up at the front. Do you think that being in front, having that clear air was so vital? Because obviously you're aware if you built that gap that they wouldn't be able to close without the power necessarily of DRS.
Yeah, I mean, in the rain, I'm not sure why, because I'm pretty sure I was slightly lower wings. I just had more pace. Obviously, there was a small incident turn 1, but I think I had a bit more pace in the rain. In the dry, it was a lot closer. I think the clean air helped, but to be honest, it was more just keeping track position, making sure I don't drop lower than P2 in the train, and making moves when I needed to, not being afraid to cause breaks, because that's one good thing about no DRS. You don't have to worry about causing a break in the train, because you will just naturally gain on P1 anyway. So I think I went for a move on Ben near the high-speed chicane. So yeah, that just shows it. But I enjoyed the racing. I'm not gonna lie. It was very difficult managing the battery because, of course, there's no DRS, so all you have is battery, and then the car behind gets slipstream. So you have to burn so that they don't pass you, but then you also have to recharge. And I think the last 2 laps, I really started to recharge. I wasn't necessarily trying to back GB into the cars behind, but I knew if he was like right on my gearbox coming into some of the corners, he's almost forced to slow down, and then he gets a bad exit. So that was my game plan. But yeah, the racing was good.
Yeah, well, it was brilliant to watch. I'm going to throw the next question to TK. So TK, your turn.
Well, I was going to say, there was probably not a moment in that race where you thought you were going to lose that. I mean, the race restart was really interesting. It was a different change of mind. I think the only thing that really I want to ask you is when that second safety car came out in essentially the sprint race at the end, you'd pitted the lap before. Was there a moment of doubt where you gone, might have messed this strategy up, or that's unfortunate?
Yeah, is this the final safety car we got, right?
Final safety car, yeah.
Yeah, that... I knew I was... Okay, so this is what happened. The safety car came out right after I boxed. I knew I was a little bit mudded. And then I saw the safety car beating me to turn 1. I was like, okay, we're guaranteed losing a few positions here. So then at that point, it's just stay as close to the delta as you can. And I'm not sure if you guys picked it up, but into turn 1, when they were filing out of the pits, I had to send one round the outside of Razin to beat him to the exit of the pit lane or the pit line. So I only just kept the position on him. And yeah, at that point, I was like, okay, I know track position is key. It's going to be super difficult to pass them. But yeah, I made it work in the end.
You certainly did. It was a stellar job, Karim. Massive well done. Obviously, that means, like I said, you brought the points gap closer to TMF Marduk. So it leaves pretty much an open book on who could become champion this season. Well done on your 3rd win, and we wish you all the very best in China.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the interview.
Thank you. Formula Karim, everyone. After that tremendous race, obviously, you could just tell how relieved, I would say, he felt after that. But we're going to take a look quickly at the standings just before we get into the next segment as well. And just to show you, TMF Marduk, he may still be the championship leader, but the gap has come down to 14 now between Formula Karim and Benjamin Daly at the top of the tree. GB68, he might be ruining the day. He opted to try and make the move around turn 9 instead of turn 11. What could have been, you wonder? But he's up in 3rd anyway, 154, and sits at the moment 24 points away from the top. We then have Meraki down in 4th on 150, managing to sleuth his way forwards. After all of that, the biggest loser in all this, Alex Gillard, was 2nd coming into this championship round. And unfortunately, after the back of all these drivers gaining points, he's now dropped to 5th in the championship. Just goes to show what missing around can do. Rasin Chai in 6th on 115. We got Lotlin Ober in 7th on 117. Dat Guy Vince in 9th on 67, ahead of Ricky 03. Formula Kai, who missed tonight as well. He's 55 points in 11th. Zafso on 47. Infratic in 13th on 42. Nick Flies on 33.5 in 14th place. And then Adam Sanderson on 33, just half a point behind Nick Flies in 15th. Matati in 31 point territory as well. And we'll run through the team standings too. We got Mercedes on 225, 1 point between them and Aston Martin. Just look at how close that championship battle is. And it's only going to get closer, I think, coming in through the rest of the season. We got McLaren in 3rd as well. Visa Kashap RB in 4th on 191, only 7 points back from McLaren. Alpine on 159, with Tom coming back now more regularly. We could yet see that points gap shrink between Alpine and RB and McLaren as well. Red Bull in 6th place on 158. Ferrari in 7th on 135. 3 points ahead of Haas. And Williams in 9th place. Now, Williams, will they make traction now that Hayden Gullis is performing as well as he did here at Australia? We saw some brilliant moments from Gullis and Ricky 03. More to come from them, I think. Sauber down in 10th place. They're on 64. So we're now going to discuss driver of the day and who to do it better than with Tom Knight and Carl Paranek. Clipbook Carl is back with us. Carl, obviously we heard from our drivers. It was wonderful to obviously witness the joy from Formula Karim. He's brought that points gap inwards. But let's talk about drivers across this grid now, because we want to talk about driver of the day. In your opinion, who is it?
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? The easy option obviously is Karim. I mean, he dominated in come wet, come dry conditions, whatever the elements he did particularly have a control of on the last lap was the element of surprise. How about that? But I think alongside that, you know, in terms of entertainment, I really enjoyed Ricky's battles through the field. It must be said. I mean, there's a lot of clips. Fourth wall break. There are a lot of clips that we compile every single one of these streams. A lot of them don't make it through the net, but I think like 35% of them at least were Ricky just battling other people with some insane respect, provided some great entertainment. So I think I'll put the Williams of Ricky forwards as my driver of the day vote.
It's Ricky from Carl. What about you, Tom?
I think it's going to go very similarly. They may not have had the best end to the race, but I think if you look at the race as a whole and potentially even the first 95% of it, they were one of the most talked about drivers that we were saying. How often do you see a performance like that from Hayden Gullis?
Yeah, I have to agree. I was actually going to mention that, Tom. I mean, the performance in itself was stellar. I was going to throw Racing Chai's name into it as well. I mean, aside from the crash that brought out the safety car to begin with, that obviously led to the session being red flagged. Obviously, we'll let him off, I think, for the time being. But, I mean, he managed to gain 10 places to rise up to third come the end of that last race that we had, the restart. But, I mean, obviously, issue aside, the crash aside that Hayden Gullis had at the very end, I think that performance in the race, I think, deserves applauding. So I think I'm going to join you, TK. I think Hayden Gullis. I'm going to outvote you on Ricky 03, unfortunately, Carl. But it does go to a Williams driver, so maybe that's something. But yeah, in terms of tonight, I mean, huge implications to the championship, TK. We now move to China, a vastly different track with undulation changes. It's nowhere near as flat as what Australia is. So there's going to be some major question marks. Who's going to cope better? There's some long straights to deal with, plenty of progressive corners. If they thought tyre wear was bad here at Australia, they're going to face something, I think, a little bit more devilish at China.
Yeah, it's a whole different kettle of fish when you go to the Chinese Grand Prix. You've gone from the slippery conditions at Australia, which were forced by the wet conditions, to the slippery conditions at China, which aren't mandated by wet conditions so much. And obviously that long back straight, we talk about it so often when we go to race at that circuit. It is an absolute killer. Down into turn 14. You can send it on the brakes if you're brave enough. Your Daniel Ricciardo's. This is where we separate the men from the boys in many respects of that corner. And I can't wait to see who wants to send it and who's successful at sending it as well.
Yeah, it's going to be extraordinary. Carl, your view on a trip to China. What do you make of it?
I think it'll be a good race, genuinely. I mean, obviously different characteristics. Australia, a lot more claustrophobic, the walls surrounding you. China, a lot more open, a lot wider, a chance to really go for sends. But that, of course, entails what the hell the wildcard's going to be at China as well. That will add its own element in as well. But the big story of today, as we run through tyre abrasion Grand Prix after tyre abrasion Grand Prix coming up soon, the pun I've been waiting to say the whole time, the Kareem of the crop rises to the top.
That is spectacular. I mean, I'm going to give a golf clap for that. Well done, Carl Paranek. Well done. Truly magnificent. Highlight of the broadcast there. Driver of the day to KP after that one. Truly brilliant. Honestly, it's been a phenomenal one, folks. And if you've enjoyed it as much as we have, we really appreciate your time. If you've been tuned in across the globe, watching all the action unfold, we've had lots of it. You can't deny. You didn't even have to pay to enter. You've watched something special. Thank you to all the Twitch viewers. Make sure, if you haven't done so already, to leave a follow to the Twitch channel. If you've been tuning in on YouTube, big thank you to all of you. Make sure you leave a like and also subscribe to the channel as well. Stay up to date with all the reels as well that get popped up onto the channel page. And also, if you've been tuning in on Twitter, big hello to you guys as well. And if you've been tuning in on social media too, following all the action and all the reels, everything that's been posted around the Creator Series, we do release a lot of stuff. Make sure you check out as well the highlights that get dropped out, and of course Scotty's recap. We'll touch on that very shortly too. At F1 Creator Series is where it's at on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you check us out on there and stay up to date with all the latest news around the Creator Series. Join the Discord too. You can join the Discord, become part of the fan zone. Of course, links are available here at Twitch and also on our YouTube as well. So get involved and join the conversation. In the meantime, if you've enjoyed the broadcast, big thank you to all of you. I'm going to throw it over to you, KP, to kick us off. Where can they find you, sir?
Well, in this particular case, you can find me in Greenland.
In Greenland.
Yes. I'll make
He's on
Scotty's
fire,
job-
this man. He's on fire.
I'm making Scotty's job extremely easy this week for the meme review. But I have a very distinctive name, Carl Poranic. If you search me up, you'll probably find me there. Gents, it's been an absolute pleasure commentating alongside you. The wonderful George Morgan and Tom Knight, the man who won't let you down, run around and desert you. It's been an absolute pleasure, gents, honestly. And credit to everyone on the team today. We made it.
Yeah, we did make it. I don't know if he's done you dirty or not, Tom, but over to you, mate.
I'm struggling to speak as well because Gareth also has the chat commander in Twitch about how many times managed to break me. But nonetheless, people can find me pretty much on every single social media at They Call Me TK, sometimes with a little underscore in front of it. What about yourself, George?
Well, you can find me, everyone, at George Morgan TV on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. It's always the same. We do appreciate your time. Also, a big shout out to our team behind the scenes as well. Huge shout out, of course, to Scotty Designs. We will be sending a raid Scotty's way very shortly as well. For those of you who haven't checked him out yet, make sure you do. He does the meme recaps that are released, and I'm sure you'd love to check them out. They are absolutely phenomenal. They always have us in fits every single time. And a big shout out to our man behind the scenes who's probably dying of stress right now is, of course, the one, the only Gareth Allen, who's our lead producer for the show. We love him to bits. Big thank you to Gareth behind the scenes. Make sure as well you send your love to Gareth in the live chat. But in the meantime, folks, it has been an utter pleasure bringing you all the action. Big thank you to EA Sports F1 and IMB Raceware, our partners as well. We'll see you next time at Shanghai in China, ready for the next round. The championship goes to Asia once more. Let's see who comes out on top. We'll see you then. Goodbye.